promoted to lieutenant, and now they had become a captain? The speed of this advancement was astonishing. Two others felt a mix of emotions, realizing that this person had achieved in a short time what had taken them years. It's truly a testament to the new generation surpassing the previous one. However, beyond envy, they felt more gratitude. If it weren't for this individual's remarkable achievements and their team's outstanding performance in competitions, these benefits would not have come to their battalion. After announcing the rewards, the commander shared some encouraging words. Before getting into the vehicle, he called the individual and another officer over. As a pilot unit of the division, you will face more and tougher challenges ahead. I hope you can maintain your performance and reach even greater heights. Additionally, I can let you in on a secret. 2 other divisions are also conducting trials for combined units. In 3 months, there will be an assessment to evaluate the results, though the exact format is still unclear. However, I do not want our battalion to let me down and bring shame to our division. Rest assured, Commander, we are confident in facing any challenges and will not disappoint you. Both officers replied in unison. The commander nodded and got into the vehicle. As the commander's car drove away, the individual turned around only to be embraced by another officer. With a grin, the officer said, "Captain, are you ready to team up with your company commander for a big push?" The individual smiled back, "Comrade Company Commander, I've always been ready." Just then, a soldier rushed over in a panic. Clearly, he was unaware of the recent promotion. "What's wrong?" the individual asked. "Someone is looking for you." "Who?" "Your girlfriend." Qin Feng had a strange expression. "What nonsense are you talking about? I don't have a girlfriend." Gu Xiong pointed at him with a mischievous grin. "Qin Feng, I thought you were truly a carefree person, but it seems you also have your moments of trouble. Look, just got promoted to company commander. And now a romantic entanglement comes knocking." "Huh?" Qin Feng was confused, completely unaware of what was going on. "Where is she?" "Sitting at the gate," the sentry replied. "We heard she was your girlfriend, so we didn't dare to neglect her and let her in first. However, without your nod, we wouldn't have dared to let her in." "What if?" Qin Feng was somewhat speechless. "What does that have to do with me?" Before he could think of a plan, Gu Xiong grabbed his arm and cheerfully ran towards the gate. "Come on, I must see what your sister-in-law looks like." "Don't talk nonsense. I'm a single nobleman." Qin Feng felt a bit anxious. Could it really be an old romantic connection coming back to haunt him? That shouldn't be the case, right? I deleted everything. Although he was very reluctant, he had no choice but to brace himself and see what was going on before figuring out a solution. Chapter 239. What punishment should you face for deceiving an innocent girl? Is it her? How would I know? What? Isn't she your girlfriend? Nonsense. I don't even know her. I've never seen her. Outside the guard booth, Gu Xiong and Qin Feng squatted by the window like thieves. Seeing that Qin Feng didn't seem to be lying, Gu Xiong suddenly realized. "Oh, so you claim you're not a scumbag, but you used her and don't even acknowledge it? Now you don't even know what she looks like? You know what this is called? Abandoning someone after using them, a modern-day chin shimmy. If this gets out, it could become a moral issue, and then you. What nonsense. How am I chin shimmy? How am I abandoning anyone? I don't even know her." Qin Feng pushed him slightly, almost causing Gu Xiong to fall. Then, with a serious expression, he analyzed. "I think there is probably some misunderstanding here." "Misunderstanding? What misunderstanding could there be? She came looking for you," Gu Xiong said, patting his butt. "Stop making excuses and think about how to reconcile with her." "All right, stop rambling. You go in and ask what the situation is, and I'll just listen here." To be safe, Qin Feng decided to let Gu Xiong go in first to probe the situation. Although he didn't know the woman inside, it was possible she was coming on behalf of a friend to settle a score with him. After all, the original owner had been somewhat improper, which made Qin Feng feel a bit guilty. He used to think that after unfriending someone, they could forget each other for good, never to meet again in this lifetime. However, an incident during a physical examination and basic training made him believe that fate is indeed something quite extraordinary. The guard booth was not large. Similar in size to a security kiosk, it could barely fit a table and 2 chairs. At that moment, the girl was sitting on a chair, focused on eating the orange in her hand. "Hello, comrade. Is there anything I can help you with?" Gu Xiong asked as he walked in. The girl looked up and noticed a leader with stars on his shoulder, immediately standing up. "Hello, my name is Wang Yimin. I'm here to find someone." "I'm Gu Xiong, the company commander here. Who are you looking for?" "Hello, I'm looking for your deputy company commander. I'm his girlfriend." Upon hearing this, Gu Xiong glanced out the window with a half-smile, thinking to himself, "You kid, still pretending. It's all confirmed now." She admitted it herself. But then the girl's next sentence left Gu Xiong completely stunned. "Could you please call Wu Jin out? Today is his birthday, and I came all the way from the Sichuan Chongqing area to give him a surprise." "You traveled such a long distance?" Gu Xiong was about to nod in agreement when his tongue suddenly got tied. He stared in disbelief and confirmed again. Wait. Who did you say you were looking for?" "Wu Jin?" Wang Yimin looked at him curiously. "Isn't he your deputy company commander? What's wrong?" Gu Xiong's mind suddenly went blank. Qin Feng, who was eavesdropping by the wall, was equally confused. Both of them felt as if they had been hit on the head with a hammer. Gu Xiong rubbed his forehead and took a while to gather his thoughts. Comrade, are you sure you were looking for our deputy company commander? You didn't get the wrong unit, did you? No, Wang Yimin replied, pulling out her phone and opening WeChat. Look, this is him, right? We chatted on WeChat just last week. Gu Xiong leaned in to take a look. The profile picture showed a side selfie of a guy wearing sunglasses, looking a bit flashy, and that face was indeed Wu Jin's. Suddenly, Gu Xiong understood everything. That scoundrel was actually pretending to be the deputy company commander outside. Damn it. I thought it was Qin Feng's misfortune coming back, and now I can't enjoy this good melon. Gu Xiong forced a smile. Comrade, please sit here for a while. Wu Jin is in a meeting and will be here shortly. No problem, I can wait a bit longer. Wang Yimin called out to Gu Xiong, leader. These are all local specialties I brought from home. Please help me give them to Wu Jin. And these 2 big bags of snacks are for his comrades. They are oranges we grow ourselves. Very sweet. All right, I'll take them to him right away. A few minutes later, Wu Jin was called into the office. On the coffee table were large and small bags of snacks and fruits. On the sofa, Gu Xiong sat in the middle, with Gu Haitao and Qin Feng on either side. The 3 of them had serious expressions, resembling a tribunal. Wu Jin, you have some nerve. Gu Xiong slammed the table, loudly questioning him. How dare you flaunt your position as deputy company commander outside and deceive an innocent girl? What punishment do you deserve? Wu Jin lowered his head, nearly burying it in his chest, his voice barely louder than a mosquito's. I know I was wrong, company commander. Gu Xiong glared at him angrily. What good does it do to admit your mistake to me? You need to tell Qin Feng. They were on the verge of making a huge blunder. Wu Jin, like a child who had done something wrong, apologized to Qin Feng with a bow. I'm sorry, squad leader. I was wrong. Please forgive me. Qin Feng waved his hand and wasn't really angry. He felt that as long as he was upright and just, he didn't have to worry about misunderstandings. He was just curious why someone with Wu Jin's character would do such a thing. Back when he first arrived, Wu Jin had seemed to be fiercely opposed to any wrongdoing. For someone like him to lie and deceive a young girl was no different from holding a knife to his throat and forcing him to eat something disgusting. Gua Haitao spoke up to mediate. Old Gu, we should give Wu Jin a chance to explain. I believe he is not that kind of person. Gua Haitao's words made Wu Jin feel a bit better. After all, the instructor was understanding. So what exactly happened? Gu Xiong lit a cigarette, impatiently slamming the lighter down on the table. Wu Jin jumped in fright and quickly explained the circumstances with a pained expression. The story is like this. After hearing his account, everyone finally understood what had happened. A few months ago, Wu Jin had taken leave to visit his family. Unbeknownst to him, his family had arranged a blind date for him. Since both families already knew each other, and he had hit it off with the girl, they quickly got engaged. However, Wu Jin later learned that the reason things moved so fast was that the matchmaker, eager to collect a fee, had lied, claiming that Wu Jin was an officer in the army and a deputy company commander. This made the girl's family very satisfied, leading them to rush the engagement. What do you plan to do next? Qin Feng suddenly asked. I haven't thought it through yet. Wu Jin replied. What if, after getting married, they find out you're not an officer and want a divorce? Qin Feng's question hit the nail on the head, leaving Wu Jin speechless and unsure of how to respond. Seeing Wu Jin silent and with his head lowered, Gua Haitao sighed. Wu Jin, although this isn't something you intended to deceive anyone about, you know that you can't hide the truth forever. You might get away with it for a while, but if the girl's family finds out, it will definitely cause a huge uproar. Wu Jin buried his head lower, his face growing more pained. He knew this was wrong and never intended to deceive anyone. In fact, he had always wanted to find a chance to confess to the girl, but was worried she wouldn't accept it and would think he was deliberately lying. After all, both families had met, and they had already had the engagement ceremony. If things go wrong at this point, it would have a very negative impact on the girl's family. After a fierce internal struggle, Wu Jin seemed to have made up his mind and suddenly looked up. Company commander, platoon leader, the mistake is mine. I deeply reflect on it, and I accept whatever punishment you give me. I will go and explain this matter to her right now, and I will definitely not cause any trouble for the battalion. Wu Jin resolutely prepared to leave, but Qin Feng called him back. Have you thought about how to explain it to her? Wu Jin was at a loss for words. Qin Feng sighed and said, she traveled all the way here to celebrate your birthday, wanting to give you a surprise. Now, if you go out and tell her that you were actually lying, that you're not an officer in the army, how do you think she will feel? Do you want to break up with her on the spot? Or do you want her to cry uncontrollably and call her parents to say that you and your family are big liars? Then what if both families end up in turmoil and become enemies? Wu Jin clenched his fists and said, but the instructor said that you can't cover up the truth forever. Qin Feng looked annoyed and replied, what the instructor means is that you should work hard and try to turn this lie into reality as soon as possible, right? Wu Jin clearly didn't understand what he meant. Gu Xiong, with his leg crossed, pointed at him with a cigarette in hand. Wu Jin, is your head made of wood? Why can't you see the obvious? The Steel Knife Company has become a pilot unit for integration in the division, and opportunities to perform will only increase. Currently, although we have expanded, aside from the first company, the second and third companies are entirely vacant. If you work hard and perform well, it shouldn't be a problem for you to become a second lieutenant squad leader, right? Wu Jin replied. But they think I'm a deputy company commander. Even if I become a squad leader, it won't matter. Seeing that Wu Jin still didn't get it, Gu Xiong was at a loss for words. He nudged Gua Haitao beside him, suggesting that this kind of talk should be left to the professional. Gua Haitao smiled and shook his head, patiently explaining to Wu Jin, what you need to do now is just one thing. Transition from a non-commissioned officer to an officer. Most people don't really understand the ranks of officers. Simply put, managing 30 people and managing 100 people doesn't seem very different to many. Qin Feng continued, so, as long as you can become a squad leader, this matter will be easily brushed aside. Even if she asks later, you can just say you made a mistake in the army and were demoted to squad leader, and that will be enough. Then, you can work hard later and try to attend a military academy for further studies. In a few years, becoming a deputy company commander isn't impossible. After hearing their words, Wu Jin suddenly felt enlightened. But then he scratched his head and awkwardly said, but isn't this just making empty promises? It is. It isn't. At this, Gua Haitao and Qin Feng's responses differed. They exchanged awkward glances. Qin Feng touched his nose and explained, strictly speaking, what cannot be realized is what we call an empty promise. If it can be realized, that would be called planning for the future, a kind-hearted lie. Gu Xiong slapped his thigh and laughed, saying, no wonder they call you a romantic. You have all these clever tricks. Which girl could resist your persuasion? I'm confused just listening. Qin Feng rolled his eyes. Is that even human talk? Next time, you should slap your own thigh. The two playfully teased each other, lightening the atmosphere in the office. Wu Jin watched them banter and gradually showed a smile. But in the next moment, Gu Xiong pointed at him and coldly snorted. What are you laughing at? Who told you to laugh? Stand up straight. Wu Jin quickly tightened his posture, straightened his back, and stood still. Seeing him like this, Gu Xiong smiled again. I just met that girl, and I can tell she's genuine. Traveling such a long way with so much stuff to find you shows she truly likes you and wants to be with you. We want to investigate this matter, and we will help you cover it up as much as possible. But the premise is that you must treat her sincerely and not play with her feelings. After marriage, you must submit your salary on time each month and avoid any nonsense. Yes, company commander. Wu Jin promised. Also, Gua Haitao added. You need to work even harder from now on and endure more hardships. As long as within the next year you can earn another third-class merit or 2 commendations. I will personally write the report for you. Thank you, instructor. Wu Jin said, his words a bit stuttered with emotion. Suddenly, he felt like he had found a goal, making life seem more hopeful. In the military, the scariest thing is having no goals, just aimlessly passing the days. Once you find your own goal, everything else will become more energetic and motivated. So, can I go find her now? Can I take her to tour our camp? Of course, since you're engaged. She has considered half a military wife now. Wu Jin repeatedly expressed his gratitude and was about to leave the office when Qin Feng called him back and walked over to him. Squad leader. Is there any other instruction? Wu Jin turned back. They're not stupid. If you go out with a second phase insignia, it will immediately give you away. Here, change into this. Let us do the role properly. Without hesitation, Qin Feng tore off his own insignia and handed it to him. Wu Jin was taken aback, feeling a warm wave in his heart. But before he could express his thanks, Gua Haitao had already slipped a stamped leave form into his pocket. I'll give you 2 days off. The girl came from so far and even brought us so many local specialties. Spend a good couple of days in the city with her and be back by 8 p.m. tomorrow night. No problem. No problem. No problem. Wu Jin quickly agreed. Just after he finished his sentence, something was thrown at him. He instinctively raised his hand to catch it. It was a car key. Gu Xiong peeled an orange and tossed a piece into his mouth, his eyes lighting up. It's quite sweet. Then he tossed a piece each to Qin Feng and Gua Haitao before turning back to Wu Jin. As a deputy company commander, it's essential to have a vehicle when going out. Since you have a driver's license, driving around will be more convenient. But there's one thing you must remember. The company commander said. Wu Jin's eyes were already a bit red with gratitude. Gu Xiong smiled and said, 10 cups of bubble tea, extra sugar, with coconut jelly. Gua Haitao also grinned. 10 servings of Zhengxin chicken steak, half with sweet plum, half with salt and pepper. Qin Feng thought for a moment and realized he didn't have anything to buy, so he raised an eyebrow and said, just bring back a pack of Lihuan cigarettes. Your old class leader Zhao Pengfei is almost out. I can give you the money later. That should be no problem, Deputy Company Commander. No problem, no problem. I guarantee to complete the task. Wu Jin laughed, and his eyes became completely moist. He gave a salute to the 3 and grew even fonder of this warm place. Chapter 241. Digging corners and picking peaches. As soon as Wu Jin left, the office erupted in hearty laughter. Gu Xiong took out 2 cigarettes from the pack, tossed one to Qin Feng and the other to Gua Haitao. After lighting them up, the three sat on the sofa, chatting and puffing smoke. I really didn't expect it. Wu Jin looks honest on the outside, but he has a bit of a tease on the inside. What do you mean, a tease? Gu Xiong turned to glare at Gua Haitao. Don't beat around the bush with me. Gua Haitao laughed. I'm not beating around the bush. I'm being straightforward. Just look at Wu Jin's progress compared to yours. You've liked Zhu Huihui for so many years, and aside from saying good morning and good night, what else can you say? If it weren't for Qin Feng giving you suggestions, you'd still be single. Hey, we're just talking. Why are you cursing? Watching the company commander and the instructor bicker, Qin Feng couldn't help but laugh. It's common for those managing military affairs and political work to banter in the army. In Liangjian, Li Yunlong often bantered with Zhao Gang. And the more they argued, the better their relationship became. All right, let us get back to business. Gu Xiong flicked the ash off his cigarette and changed the subject. Although we have now become a pilot unit of the division and renamed it the Steelblade Combined Battalion, we're still just an empty shell. We need a plan for weapons, personnel, and how to proceed with training. We can't just go blindly. Gua Haitao nodded. From what I understand, there are not many combined units in the country right now. It won't be easy to lead this team well and achieve results in 3 months. After they spoke, both cast meaningful glances at Qin Feng. Qin Feng was lost in thought and didn't notice their gazes. Gu Xiong raised his chin. Military strategist, give us some advice? Gua Haitao snapped his fingers. Yes, Qin Company Commander, do you have any ideas? Qin Feng blinked a couple of times. Feeling a bit speechless. Do you really take me for an encyclopedia? You both graduated from regular military academies. Why do you rely on this rookie for everything? Seeing Qin Feng using the new recruits as a shield, the two of them laughed with thick faces. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. This is what they call the capable, do more work. Come on, give us some ideas, give us some opinions. We are training you. Qin Feng shrugged helplessly. Although the higher-ups viewed this place as a pilot unit for integration, they hadn't actually provided much technical or conceptual support. In simple terms, they were expected to explore a path of integration that belonged to them. Currently, the 3 divisions in the army were all conducting pilot projects, and 3 months later, it would be time to evaluate the results. Therefore, how to quickly assemble this unit and carry out effective training had become a top priority. With tight deadlines and heavy tasks, plus the imminent change of defense to a completely unfamiliar place, this job was not something just anyone could handle easily. Qin Feng organized his thoughts and said, my proposal is very simple. Instead of thinking about how to assemble and train this unit, we should find an existing model to replicate and then add our own elements. It's like the Amazon abroad or a certain platform domestically. We just need to change the appearance. This way, the success rate would be highest and the risk lowest. What you said makes sense, Gu Xiong frowned and asked. But who can we imitate? The concept of an integrated battalion has only recently been proposed, and the whole army can't find any templates. Qin Feng shook his head. No? We do have a template, and it's a very successful one, located at the Zurich and Chaoyuan bases. Are you talking about Lan Jiguang? Yes, Qin Feng nodded. The 81st Group Army he belongs to has now transformed into an integrated brigade. Our scale is much smaller than theirs, and our personnel configuration is not that complicated, so it should be quicker to operate. I have to say, Qin Feng's idea was quite good. Copying an existing operation is much easier than racking one's brain with random thoughts. Moreover, Lan Jiguang's template was validated through hard battles over several years. Although it might not be the most standard answer, at least it could withstand verification. Gu Xiong clapped his thigh and said excitedly, this idea is feasible. I'll first get some information from the division commander to review. Then we can delve into it together and see what needs to be adjusted or modified. Let's strive to innovate on the existing foundation and carve out our own distinctive integration path. Gua Haitao nodded in agreement, then stroked his chin and said, the general direction is settled. Next, we need to address personnel and equipment, as well as weapon configurations. Weaponry doesn't need to be a concern. Gu Xiong waved his hand. After the change of defense, these division commanders will help us sort it out. Our primary focus now is to expand the personnel, and they need to be of different types. Otherwise, it can't be called integration. That's true, but where can we find so many excellent personnel? The two of them once again turned their gaze toward Qin Feng in unison, leaving him utterly perplexed. If you two aren't going to use your brains, you might as well just throw them away. Why do you rely on me for everything? If that's the case, I'll just take charge as the camp leader, and you can be my subordinates. Gu Xiong snapped his fingers at him and said with a grin, Qin Feng, stop playing dumb. Give us some ideas. Use your brain a bit. Qin Feng rolled his eyes and replied, I think we don't need to expand our personnel too much right now. Quality over quantity. Having too many people will just take more time to coordinate. What is your idea then? Gu Xiong asked, stroking his chin in confusion. Let's borrow some people from the 402nd Regiment first and get the integration process started. As for expanding personnel, there's no rush. Once things stabilize, we can recruit more comprehensively later. Gua Haitao pondered for a moment and looked at Ge Zhiyong. I think Qin Feng's approach is feasible. We need to show results in 3 months. Having more people might actually make training harder. Ge Zhiyong hesitated for a moment, but then nodded. All right then. Since that's the case, you can handle borrowing troops from Old Chiu at the 402nd Regiment. Me? Qin Feng pointed at himself, his eyes wide open. Yes. Ge Zhiyong and Gua Haitao exchanged sly smiles. You proposed the idea, so who else should go? Qin Feng wanted to curse at them, but held back. He felt like these two were just like old foxes, setting him up. He grumbled as he came down from upstairs, mentally cursing their entire lineage. At that moment, Zhao Pengfei came running over. What's up? Qin Feng, what's going on? He asked hurriedly. I just saw Wu Jin, wearing a lieutenant's insignia, actually holding hands with a girl and driving the camp leader's car out. Qin Feng chuckled and recounted the earlier events. Zhao Pengfei was stunned for a moment, then immediately became furious. That scoundrel. He looks all serious usually, but who knew he'd pull this kind of stunt? It's not like he did it on purpose. He's stuck in a tough spot now, Qin Feng replied. But that's still deceptive. That kid can't lie to save his life. What if he slips up in front of the girl? Qin Feng waved his hand dismissively. No need to worry. It's just a day or two. As long as he doesn't run into any patrol issues, it should be fine. Zhao Pengfei thought about it, and then suddenly realized, oh no. I should have asked him to bring me a pack of cigarettes. They're much cheaper outside. I need to text him right away. Qin Feng stopped him. No need. I've already told him. Just 1 pack of Likun. Zhao Pengfei grinned and gave him a playful punch. Haha. You're always so thoughtful. Old squad leader. Can you drive me out later? Where to? To the 402nd Regiment. What for? Qin Feng smirked and replied, to poach some talent. Chapter 242. The favor owed to Qin Feng must be repaid. Around 2 in the afternoon, 7 or 8 company commanders stormed into the regiment headquarters, fuming and demanding to see the regimental commander for an explanation. However, since they couldn't find Xiu Guohai, they all ended up in the political committee office. In the room, Ji Mingyuan was browsing through documents when he noticed a crowd of people rushing in, and he immediately frowned. He rolled up his sleeves and checked his watch. It was 2 in the afternoon. Why were you all here instead of staying in your respective units? The cafeteria is closed at this hour, and there's no food left. The crowd didn't have time to joke with Ji Mingyuan. Wu Jian, the captain of the 4th Company, spoke up as the representative. Comrade political officer, you have to take charge of this matter for us. What is going on? Ji Mingyuan closed his notebook, puzzled, and set his pen aside. Wu Jian, looking aggrieved, said, this morning, the Steel Blade Company. No. It should be called the Steel Blade Combined Battalion now. Had their Vice Commander Qin, or rather, Battalion Commander Qin, come to our 4th Company to take people. He said the unit was expanding and needed more personnel, and he took away several of our best sharpshooters. These are all talents we've been training in our company, and 2 of them just recently placed in competitions, especially that new recruit named Li Jiejun. I was even planning to send him to the training squad to prepare him for a squad leader role, and I had already submitted his name. What? Ji Mingyuan's expression changed immediately. Wait. Qin Feng came to you to take people, and you just gave them up? Are you out of your mind? Wu Jian was so anxious he started stamping his feet. Political officer, I didn't want to give them up either. But how could I refuse? He had the battalion commander's orders in hand. It clearly stated that I must cooperate, and as long as they aren't key personnel, they can take whoever they want. If I dared to disagree, that would be defying military orders, and that's a serious offense. The other company commanders began to voice their complaints in unison. Our 2nd Company is the same. He used the orders to pressure me into releasing personnel. How could I refuse? Political officer, after Qin Feng went to our 8th Company, I treated him politely, with good cigarettes and tea, even inviting him for hamburgers. Yet he ended up taking 4 or 5 of my good soldiers. Political officer, you have to take charge of this matter. You must give us an explanation, or we won't leave today. The office was in chaos, resembling a marketplace. Ji Mingyuan's eyes widened as he listened, feeling as if he were hearing a story. He had worked alongside Xiu Guohai for many years and was well aware of his working style. Xiu was like a bear drawn to honey when it came to good soldiers. There was no way he would agree to let Qin Feng take away so many excellent soldiers, especially the top ones. Everyone quiet down please. Calm down. Ji Mingyuan clapped his hands on the table, and the room gradually quieted. I believe there is some misunderstanding in this matter. The regiment commander is at a meeting with the division, and I will definitely get to the bottom of this when he returns. I will give you all an answer. Just then, Xiu Guohai appeared at the door, carrying his briefcase and looking hurried. Upon seeing the regiment commander return, everyone rushed to him like little tadpoles seeking their mother. Regiment commander, this morning, Qin Feng took your orders and ran off with many people from our company. What is going on? Is his order fake? You must take charge of this matter. That guy cannot be let off easily. Xiu Guohai felt a headache from the noise and hurriedly squeezed into the room. Enough. It's too loud. I traveled such a long way back. Can you let me have a sip of water first? After saying that, he pulled out a jar of tea leaves from the nearby drawer, only to find it empty. He turned around and said to Ji Mingyuan with slight dissatisfaction, "Old Ji, what's going on? The tea leaves I just sent you not long ago are already finished? You're too extravagant." Ji Mingyuan was momentarily at a loss for words, feeling a mix of amusement and frustration. With everything on fire, why are you still worried about tea leaves? However, he also sensed something unusual from Qiu Guohai's nonchalant demeanor. Logically, if Qiu Guohai was completely unaware of this, he would not have such an attitude. This indicates that he was aware of Qin Feng's orders to transfer personnel from various units. But why did Qiu Guohai agree? Why did he make a decision without consulting him? "Captain, so many people are waiting for your response. Can you be a bit more decisive?" Ji Mingyuan reminded him with a cough, looking at the crowd that was as restless as ants on a hot pan. Qiu Guohai put down his teacup, sat down on the sofa, and began to speak. Qin Feng's orders are not false. His request to transfer personnel is indeed approved by me. Hearing this response, everyone, including Ji Mingyuan, was shocked. But why? Wu Jian couldn't understand and raised his voice. "That's a valuable talent we've worked hard to cultivate. How can you just give them away?" Qiu Guohai tapped the table in displeasure, and Wu Jian immediately realized he had overstepped, quickly quieting down and standing straight. Qiu Guohai raised 2 fingers and said sternly, "Regarding why I agreed to let Qin Feng take people away, I will only mention 2 points. First, our team achieved such results in the competition thanks to Qin Feng's help. If it weren't for his efforts to strengthen our training and his multiple assists in team events, our results would likely have been among the worst." The captain of the 8th company grew anxious. Even if we owe him a favor, it shouldn't be repaid this way. The 2nd company leader also said anxiously, "Now that so many people have been taken away, our team is greatly weakened, and our morale is severely damaged. How are we supposed to handle future assessments?" Qiu Guohai waved his hand. "You don't need to worry about that. I just returned from the division headquarters and have already received news. The 2 teams that ranked last in the competition are about to face disbandment. Nearly half of their personnel will have to be reassigned or discharged early, while those with outstanding results will be redistributed to various units. Because of our team's excellent performance in the competition, we can choose first." Upon hearing this, everyone exchanged glances in surprise. No one expected the disbandment order to come so quickly. Just after losing the competition, they were immediately facing disbandment, with no room for negotiation. Thinking about it, if the 402nd Regiment loses the match on the field, wouldn't everyone suddenly feel a chill? Ji Mingyuan is already hesitant to think further. This time, their regiment was able to turn danger into safety, largely thanks to Qin Feng's help. Since there are quality recruits coming in, it's understandable for the commander to act this way. After all, Qin Feng essentially helped them maintain their unit. One must remember to repay kindness. This favor is significant and must be returned. As for the 2nd point, second, he said, "Ouch, ouch, ouch." Qiu Guohai picked up his teacup, smiled, and took a sip, only to accidentally burn his tongue. He hurriedly put down the cup, letting out a hissing sound in discomfort. Seeing this, everyone exchanged glances and couldn't help but chuckle. Qiu Guohai wiped his mouth with a tissue, his tone slightly slurred. "Second, I reached an agreement with Qin Feng. An agreement that will allow us to mutually benefit with the Steel Knife Combined Battalion and make the 402nd Regiment the elite unit of the entire division." Chapter 243. It's quite pitiful. Let Su Tiankai come here to raise pigs. In the evening, a Dongfeng military transport vehicle was speeding down the highway. The back compartment was filled with drowsy individuals, all promising talents that Qin Feng had recruited from various companies of the 402nd Regiment. An old Cantonese song was playing on the radio. Zhao Pengfei hummed along, steering the vehicle steadily. In the passenger seat, Qin Feng was resting with his eyes closed. Zhao Pengfei glanced at the rearview mirror, curious, and asked Qin Feng, "I still don't quite understand. Even if it's out of gratitude, Commander Qiu has no reason to let us take so many people, right? We're not just digging at the roots. It's like we've hollowed out their entire foundation. What kind of spell did you cast on him that he let us take people so easily?" Qin Feng opened his eyes and smiled lightly. "Because I made a deal with him." "A deal?" Zhao Pengfei was a bit surprised. "Exactly," Qin Feng nodded. "I promised him that in the future, we can let him select some of the new recruits we train in our new soldier battalion. Additionally, I told him that as a pilot unit, we would organize training sessions from time to time and invite personnel from special forces to serve as training instructors. At that time, they can also send some people to participate in our training, essentially allowing us to help them train some talents for free. Similarly, if the 402nd Regiment has any good recruits, we can also select from them. This deal is mutually beneficial and promotes win-win cooperation." "Now I understand," Zhao Pengfei suddenly realized. But then he froze. "Wait, when did we say we were going to organize training sessions? And can we really invite Special Forces personnel to be instructors?" Qin Feng chuckled and said, "Right now, it's just a plan, but we will definitely hold training sessions, modeled after the Hunter training program. As for the Special Forces, with the connections from the company commander and Zhu Huihui, we have ties with them. The Devil's Week has been involved, and I even helped them catch that fleeing drug lord. So asking them to send some technical support shouldn't be too much, right? Zhao Pengfei chuckled. You have a point. If you go for the Special Forces selection and get in, you'd be lost to us. But here, you'll still be trained by Special Forces personnel and then sent back. Wow, this deal is really too good. If it were me, I'd be tempted too. No wonder Captain Xiu agreed so readily. At that moment, two faces suddenly squeezed in from the grid window behind. Brother Feng, is it really possible to get promoted if we go to your place? Qin Feng turned around and saw Li Jiaxing and Qi Ming, their faces close together, smiling brightly. Of course it is, Qin Feng replied without hesitation. Your old squad leader was promoted from a third-term sergeant to a second lieutenant squad leader just because of his exceptional abilities and performance, right? Hearing this, Zhao Pengfei, who was driving, straightened his back immediately and subtly tugged at his collar to display the insignia of 1 stripe and 1 star. His smile resembled a seesaw, impossible to suppress. This proud expression was akin to a certain well-known meme, full of swagger. Li Jiaxing wiped his drool with a smile and enviously asked, Brother Feng, with my shooting skills, I'll definitely become a top sniper in the future. Getting a position as Deputy Company Commander shouldn't be a problem, right? Qi Ming quickly chimed in, Brother Feng, I can drive infantry fighting vehicles and handle machine guns pretty well too. Just get me a platoon leader position, otherwise. A deputy platoon leader is fine. You mountain cannon. Li Jiaxing slapped him. These days in the army, who has deputy platoon leaders? You start as a platoon leader. Oh, then I'll be a platoon leader, huh? Seeing the two of them grinning widely, it was clear they were already a bit impatient. Qin Feng raised his eyebrows and said, as long as you can perform well and achieve merits, don't say deputy company commander. Becoming a company commander isn't out of the question. Not just you two. Everyone has this opportunity. He stretched his neck and called out to everyone sitting in the vehicle. Now, we are a pilot unit for integration within the division. At this time, not only the division leaders, but even the military leaders are paying attention to our development. As long as you perform well and strive for more achievements, everyone has a chance to rise. Additionally, let me mention something you all care about. The salary here is much higher than what you had in your previous units. And the retirement benefits are significantly better too. Qin Feng's words instantly brought smiles back to the faces of those who had been feeling a bit down. Initially, they were somewhat unwilling to be forcibly taken away. After spending a long time in their old unit, they had developed feelings for it. No matter how much the integration pilot unit was emphasized, what did it have to do with them? But when high salaries and better retirement benefits were mentioned, they perked up. A large portion of people join the army for stable salaries and retirement benefits. Soldiers are also human. They need to marry and have children, and they have both elderly and young ones to care for. In the army, they don't worry about food, drink, or medical care, but once they retire and return, there are numerous expenses. So, looking at it this way, the Steel Knife Integration Company is actually quite good. High salaries, great benefits, and opportunities for advancement. Cut it out. Who would believe that? Anyone can talk big. Just then, an untimely voice suddenly rang out from the corner. The owner of this voice not only held the highest rank in the whole carriage, but was also the only other lieutenant besides Qin Feng. Li Jiaxing frowned, turned around with displeasure, and curiously asked, Brother Feng, I don't understand. Why did you bring this guy along? He's just a useless person. Even the military dogs we raise in our company don't like him. Isn't bringing him along a waste of resources? Zhao Pengfei glanced at the rearview mirror and shared the same question. Qin Feng, you didn't bring him out of pity, did you? Qin Feng shook his head with a smile. I'm not that naive. However, I do believe that every monkey has its own way of being tied up. After all, he is the only one in our vehicle who graduated from a military academy, so he will surely have his use. He added, old squad leader. I'll leave him to you later. Train him rigorously. If he shows results, he can stay. If not, he can go back to feeding pigs. Zhao Pengfei grinned wickedly. Training a lieutenant under a second lieutenant, I like it. Within a week, I guarantee he'll be crying for his mother. Feeling the ill-intentioned gaze from the front, Su Tiankai immediately shivered. He had a bad premonition, feeling like he was on a pirate ship. In fact, he never wanted to follow Qin Feng. From the beginning, he believed that it was Qin Feng who caused him to end up in this situation. Now, having to work under Qin Feng, Su Tiankai naturally felt very unwilling. But where else could he go? Was he really going to raise pigs until he was discharged? Su Tiankai sighed deeply, trying to shrink back into the corner, only to find that he had no way out. At this point, he could only be the fish and Qin Feng the butcher, waiting to be slaughtered. The vehicle continued to drive forward. At 6 in the evening, they arrived near a gas station. On the roadside of the gas station, a military jeep was parked. Qin Feng got out of the car, opened the door of the jeep, and was greeted by a waft of fried chicken aroma. He took out 2 large bags of milk tea and fried chicken from the back seat and handed a pack of cigarettes to Zhao Pengfei. After giving a brief instruction, he let Zhao Pengfei drive them back first, while he would return to the team later. After watching the transport vehicle drive away, Qin Feng finally opened the door and sat in the passenger seat of the Jeep. He glanced at Wu Jin, who was still grinning in the driver's seat, and teased. Looks like Deputy Squad Leader Wu had a good time during the break, living it up? Wu Jin immediately covered his flushed face, fidgeting as he replied, not really. Just wandered around the city, had a meal, and watched a movie. We didn't share a room, we slept separately. I'm a traditional man, before marriage. Alright, I didn't ask for that much detail. Qin Feng interrupted, making a gesture of understanding. Did you see her off? Yes, the train was at 5 in the afternoon. Did you slip up? No, she doesn't understand that. She just knows me. As Wu Jin spoke, he took off the insignia from his collar and handed it back to Qin Feng. Qin Feng asked, did you buy the things I asked you to? Wu Jin immediately pulled out 2 bags from under his seat and handed them to him, curiously asking, Squad Leader, where are we going now? Qin Feng shook the 2 bags of big white rabbit candy in his hand and smiled slightly. We're going to visit the Thunder Leopard and treat their squad leader to some candy. Chapter 244. Qin Feng, you can't be a fraud, right? Congratulations, Qin. I heard you got promoted again. Kong Lai walked into the squad leader's office, smiling as he congratulated Qin Feng. Qin Feng, who was sitting on the sofa, quickly stood up. Team Leader Kong, please don't tease me. I'm just an acting squad leader. Kong Lai waved his hand dismissively. People who have the word acting in their title usually do so because of lack of ability and need further evaluation. But you, as an acting squad leader, are different. Who knows? You might just jump up the ranks again. Next time I see you, you could be a major deputy battalion commander. One must admit, Kong Lai, this first-class sergeant major, is quite impressive. After so many years in the military, he knows just what to say. At that moment, Kong Lai suddenly noticed the steaming cup of tea in front of Qin Feng. He then complained to Yuan Feng, who was making tea. Old Yuan, this is a bit excessive. I've come to your office 100 times, and every time I get Lipton tea bags. Why is it that Qin Feng comes just once and you bring out that precious tea guanyin? This is discrimination, blatant discrimination. Yuan Feng casually brewed a cup of black tea with a tea bag and said with a smile, he is a guest and brought a gift. Shouldn't I show him some courtesy? You're one of us, so we don't need to play these formalities. Kong Lai blew on the murky tea in front of him and said irritably, I'd rather you treat me like an outsider and give me some of those formalities. He then turned his gaze to the 2 bags of big white rabbit candy on the table, picked one up, popped it in his mouth, and chewed without saying much. Yuan Feng also made himself a cup of tea and straightforwardly looked at Qin Feng, asking, so what is up? You come looking for me at night with all this candy. What do you want? Qin Feng was direct. I want to collaborate with you. Collaborate? Yuan Feng frowned, while Kong Lai showed a look of interest. Qin Feng didn't hold back. The Steelblade Company is currently a pilot unit for integrated operations within the division. The future model is multi-service joint operations. Many Western countries have already promoted this integrated combat model with significant results. Yuan Feng raised his hand to stop him. You don't need to mention things that can be found in the data, just tell me how you want to collaborate. Qin Feng nodded, mutual training. Honing skills to perfection. He looked intently at Yuan Feng. Although you are special forces, you will inevitably encounter various emergencies in combat. Situations that cannot be simulated in regular training. Our combined arms training camp can fill this gap and help you simulate response strategies in scenarios involving infantry armor coordination, infantry artillery coordination, and firepower coverage strikes. Of course, my team can also simulate how to handle unconventional forces, allowing us to develop several different contingency plans. After hearing this idea, Kong Lai suddenly felt it was astonishing. Initially, he thought Qin Feng came this time with the same intention as last time, aiming to benefit from the training programs without contributing. However, he did not expect this young man to propose such insightful ideas. In fact, while special forces sound impressive, they do have their drawbacks. If they encounter mercenaries or armed drug traffickers on the battlefield, special forces can easily crush them due to their advantages. However, once they face heavily armed units organized by companies or battalions, their fate is often sealed. Although special forces are called the pinnacle of infantry, they are not invincible. A single shell from the enemy can spell doom, even if they are hiding in a building. Qin Feng's cooperation proposal, while not guaranteeing to eliminate the risk of death, could provide Lei Bao with more response plans when facing such situations during missions, thereby reducing unnecessary casualties. Old Yuan, I think this plan is unnecessary. He was interrupted before Kong Lai could finish his sentence. He looked at Yuan Feng in surprise and confusion, not understanding why such a beneficial proposal would be rejected. Qin Feng took a sip of tea, his expression remaining mostly unchanged, as if he anticipated the other party wouldn't agree easily. Yuan Feng leaned back on the sofa and said, Qin Feng, first I must admit that you are a very thoughtful young man. The fact that you could come up with such a plan and dare to come here with just 2 bags of candy shows that your meticulousness and audacity far exceed that of the average person. Qin Feng's expression stiffened for a moment, but was quickly masked. Yuan Feng tapped the table with his fingers. However, your plan has a fatal flaw. That is, you currently have nothing, which amounts to empty talk. If the combined arms camp is established, its strength would certainly be considerable. But right now you are just a shell and cannot negotiate on equal terms with Lei Bao, rather than a win-win partnership. It seems you are trying to set a trap to have Lei Bao help you train for free and enhance your capabilities. Seeing that Qin Feng neither admitted nor denied this, Kong Lai was shocked, almost dropping his jaw to the ground. Damn it, is this kid that deep in strategy? Before joining the military, he couldn't have been a con artist, could he? He lies without batting an eye. He actually dared to come to Lei Bao with empty promises while holding 2 bags of candy, and almost led himself, a first-class sergeant major, into the trap. Yuan Feng's gaze was deep, yet filled with interest as he watched Qin Feng. Let me guess. The reason you were able to smoothly take so many people away during the day at the 402nd Regiment must have used the same trick, right? Perhaps you even told them that you would hire people from a certain organization to help with training and talent development? Your tactic of pulling the flag from both ends is indeed impressive. But it won't work on me, Qin Feng raised the corner of his mouth, revealing a slight smile. He didn't expect that Yuan Feng would see through his plan at a glance. It seems that this squad leader is far more capable than he imagined. However, the more skilled Yuan Feng is, the more inexplicable excitement Qin Feng feels. Because only by sparring with experts can he learn more and grow faster. That's right, our troops currently do not have the qualifications to negotiate with equals. But you made one mistake. The cooperation I'm referring to is not for now, but for 3 months later. In 3 months, I will show you the value of the Steel Knife Combined Battalion, and then you can reconsider whether to cooperate. Of course, by then, we can also choose to collaborate with other troops. After all, the Reconnaissance Company and the Military Reconnaissance Battalion are also quite strong. Yuan Feng didn't expect that Qin Feng could turn the tables in this situation. Just as he was contemplating whether the future combined battalion could bring the expected benefits to his organization, Kong Lai, sitting nearby, couldn't sit still any longer and responded first. Old Yuan, I think this cooperation makes sense. No matter how many times we train, nothing compares to real combat experience. If they can really form a strong combined battalion, it will definitely help improve our capabilities. Qin Feng, don't look for others. We are familiar with each other, and it will be more convenient to cooperate, right? Qin Feng didn't rush to answer, but leisurely sipped his tea, waiting for Yuan Feng's response. After all, he was the one in charge. Seeing Kong Lai's impatient demeanor, Yuan Feng helplessly pressed his forehead. One must admit that Qin Feng has a real knack for understanding people's hearts. No wonder when he first arrived. He asked where Kong Lai had gone and said it had been a long time since they last met, inviting him to drink tea and eat sweets together. With Qin Feng's reasoned arguments and Kong Lai's unintentional encouragement, even if Yuan Feng wanted to refuse, he couldn't find a reason. I can agree to this cooperation. But there is one prerequisite. What condition? 3 months later, you not only have to prove your strength, but also have to win against us in the assessment. Qin Feng's pupils contracted, staring at him in shock. The ones assessing us afterward will be your people? Yuan Feng shook his head, revealing a meaningful smile. No. We are just supporting actors. The real protagonist is someone else. Chapter 245. Bold and Reckless. You want to poach the squad leader? Squad leader Yuan. Are you really not going to reconsider? Or maybe you should think it over. Think over what? Get lost. Hurry up and get out. At the steps of the office building, Yuan Feng was quite annoyed with Qin Feng. Just as he prepared to kick him down, Qin Feng had already slipped away. That damn guy. Yuan Feng glared at Qin Feng's back, which was running faster than a rabbit, and muttered in frustration. Kong Lai beside him shook his head, both amused and helpless. If we talk about courage, Qin Feng was definitely the boldest person he had ever seen. With a smile, Qin Feng headed straight for the parking lot, as Wu Jin was still waiting for him there. However, as soon as he arrived, he noticed Zhu Huihui standing by the car, holding a large box. Wu Jin was behind the car, unloading several boxes into the trunk. Sister Zhu, what is this? Qin Feng walked over to greet her. Zhu Huihui turned around, saw Qin Feng, and smiled as she raised the cardboard box in her hand. Qin Feng, I specifically got some daily necessities for you guys, like toothpaste, towels, and soap. These towels are different from what you buy at the service center. They are from big brands with good absorbency. You can take them back later. Sister Zhu, I can't accept this. What is there to be embarrassed about? It's just 100 sets, and with the new year coming up, it's a little token of my appreciation. Seeing that he couldn't refuse, Qin Feng finally accepted the gifts. Soon, Wu Jin had loaded everything into the car. With a loud bang, the trunk closed. Wu Jin got into the car first and started the engine. Once they were sure there were no outsiders around, Zhu Huihui took out a personal care set and stuffed it into Qin Feng's arms. Help me give this to your captain. We've been really busy lately. and I just can't find the time to look for him. After you give it to him, make sure he replaces all those old items. No problem, sister-in-law. I'll definitely supervise him. Qin Feng said with a smile and a salute, which made Zhu Huihui blush at being called sister-in-law. All right, you two should head back quickly. It's getting late. Drive slowly on the way. Got it, sister-in-law. Both Wu Jin and Qin Feng replied in unison. The car soon drove off into the night. Zhu Huihui withdrew her gaze and was about to turn back when she spotted two people standing not far away. Good evening, Captain. How did your conversation with Qin Feng go? Zhu Huihui walked over to greet them. It was fine for the most part. Yuan Feng replied with a slight twitch of his eyelids, while Kong Lai was the one who spoke up. This immediately piqued Zhu Huihui's curiosity. What do you mean by fine for the most part? Was the latter part not pleasant? Kong Lai didn't hold back and briefly recounted what had happened earlier. Upon hearing that Qin Feng had brought 2 bags of candy and had the audacity to discuss cooperation, Zhu Huihui laughed. Ha ha ha, Qin Feng really is quite bold. But he must have some confidence to say that. We know this, so it's considered a preliminary agreement for cooperation. We'll just have to see how their unit performs in 3 months. Kong Lai smiled wryly. But do you know what that kid said after we finished discussing? Zhu Huihui was puzzled. What did he say? Kong Lai glanced at Yuan Feng and replied with a bitter smile. He asked how much the salary was for Captain Yuan's unit, what the benefits were like, and if anyone had thoughts of switching to their side, saying he could offer a high salary. Zhu Huihui's eyes widened in surprise. What does he mean by that? Is he trying to poach from us and wants to bring Captain Yuan's unit over to their side? He is too bold. Who says not? It's simply outrageous. Kong Lai covered his forehead and shook his head helplessly. A captain, and a temporary one at that, actually came to dig out a company officer. And he's the squad leader of the special forces? I've never seen anyone so bold. Isn't that just poking a tiger's butt? Seeing Yuan Feng's face turn even uglier, Zhu Huihui quickly stepped in to smooth things over. Squad leader, Qin Feng is just making a little joke. We've known him for a while now, and we all know he is quite carefree and imaginative. He is just saying it for fun, don't take it seriously. Yuan Feng snorted coldly, said nothing, and turned to leave. Clearly, he was quite angered by Qin Feng. Kong Lai shrugged and quickly followed suit. Watching the two depart, Zhu Huihui smiled wryly and shook her head. A woman's intuition told her that Qin Feng was definitely not just joking around. Although he was currently just a captain, one day when he has the capability, he will surely return. The reasoning is quite simple. The basic attributes of the Steelblade Company have already changed. They have transformed from an elite company into a unit capable of comprehensive combat operations. This means that the team not only needs tanks, armored vehicles, and artillery, but also sharpshooters and special operations teams to scout enemy positions. Information support for operations is equally crucial. As long as the Steelblade Combined Battalion continues on this path, these are all necessities. Of course, these are discussions for another time. Qin Feng's future path is still long, and no one knows how far he can go or how high he can stand. Come on, new towels are here. Remember, these were bought by your sister-in-law. She's from the Thunder Leopard Special Operations Brigade, so let's appreciate her. Li Jiejun and Qi Meng were like street vendors, loudly calling out while distributing towels and daily necessities from the box to everyone. However, they were only distributing to the newcomers, not the veterans of the Steelblade Company. This was a special arrangement made by Qin Feng after consulting Gu Jiong, aiming to foster a sense of belonging and help everyone quickly integrate into the collective. On the other hand, it was also to let everyone know that their relationship with the Thunder Leopard was solid. This is similar to how many institutions often announce during recruitment that they have hired renowned professors from prestigious universities as teachers. In the dormitory building, looking down at the large group receiving items, and then glancing at the old towels in the basin that were nearly worn through, Niu Taijun and the others were filled with envy. Wow, they say the new generation pushes the old. It really is true. What is this called? This is called being fickle. We're going to be treated like stepchildren from now on. Wu Jin kicked the backsides of a few speakers, saying, "What are you blabbering about? We're not out of stuff. We're just prioritizing them first." The few of them laughed awkwardly, indicating they were just joking. Meanwhile, in the company commander's dormitory, Qin Feng handed over the set of toiletries given by Zhu Huihui to Gu Jiong. After receiving it, Gu Jiong immediately buried his head in the towel, his face filled with a happy smile. So soft, so fragrant. Qin Feng watched from the side and felt goosebumps rising. Squad leader, is it really that exaggerated? Gu Jiong took a couple of deep breaths of the soap, then packed everything back into the bag and treasured it in the cabinet. You single dog, no one gives you anything. How could you understand our feelings as active participants? Qin Feng twitched his mouth a couple of times, thinking to himself that Gu Jiong was quite trendy and knew what active participants meant. Then, he briefly reported the results of today's itinerary. Gu Jiong nodded. It's good to have cooperation intentions. He looked at Qin Feng and said, during this period, we mainly focus on physical training and mutual adaptation. We'll be moving in a few days, once we get to the new place. We can officially roll up our sleeves and work hard. Let's strive to achieve results early and let everyone know our reputation. Yes. Time passed quickly over the next few days. Some units had already set out on the road to change their deployment. The notification connected to Steel Knife was that they would officially depart at 4 o'clock tomorrow morning. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, a rapid whistle sounded. Soon after, a loud voice from the duty officer echoed downstairs. Everyone, gather downstairs for a collective cleanup. Chapter 246. Take this flag and embark on a new journey. What? Why do I have to clean the latrine again? When Li Jiaxing heard the task assigned to him, it felt like a bolt from the blue. Qi Ming next to him couldn't help but laugh, even giving him the nickname of the latrine expert. Li Jiaxing immediately protested, shouting regardless of whether he was in formation, "Brother Foam, can I switch positions?" This title was usually only used by the new recruits. Li Jiaxing's sudden outburst made some uninformed individuals whisper among themselves. After all, forming cliques and calling someone Big Brother was not looked upon favorably in the military. Joking privately was one thing, but it was inappropriate in formal settings. To avoid misunderstandings, Qin Feng had to clear his throat and spoke in a slightly serious tone. Li Jiaxing, in formal occasions, address me by my rank. Yes, Captain. Li Jiaxing finally realized what was happening. But then, he became aggrieved. Captain, can you not make me clean the latrine? I have a cleanliness obsession, a severe one. And I get scared just seeing a latrine. His words drew laughter from everyone. In the military, the concept of cleanliness obsession was non-existent. However, cleaning a latrine was something everyone feared. Qin Feng also laughed. The reason I'm assigning you this is that you have experience from your time in the recruit company. And you're very skilled at it. I can vouch for that. At this moment, Yang Kaifeng in the ranks suddenly raised his hand and shouted. At that time, I was supervising him. His movements were so swift. In no time, he had that little yellow basin cleaned out. Zhao Pengfei laughed and joked, Li Jiaxing, you're the most experienced at this job. The others have never done it. So just accept your fate. After we're done, I'll treat you to instant noodles. Hearing the words instant noodles, Li Jiaxing's face immediately turned pale. He recalled the small yellow basin from that night and the scene of drinking soup from the basin's edge. Amidst the laughter, Qin Feng chuckled and said, see, the eyes of the crowd are sharp. The greater the ability, the greater the responsibility. This task is yours. Li Jiaxing felt wrong to the point of tears. When I was in the new recruits company, you tricked me into cleaning feces. Now that I've joined the squad, you still trick me into cleaning feces. You guys are too mean. Seeing his pitiful look, Qin Feng changed his tone. However, this time I can assign you a helper. You can choose to supervise or work together with someone. Upon hearing this, Li Jiaxing perked up. Su Tiankai. Oh no. Su Tiankai thought to himself and quickly shouted. Qin Feng raised an eyebrow at Li Jiaxing. Let Su Tiankai help you. You must clean the pit in 1 hour. Can you do it? Li Jiaxing grinned. Don't worry. Squad leader, this job is easy. We won't need an hour. We can finish it in half an hour. Watching Li Jiaxing's adaptability, Qin Feng found it amusing. Back in the new recruits company, one of the main reasons this guy voluntarily stepped down from the position of deputy squad leader was to avoid being assigned to clean up feces. Now, he still couldn't escape this fate. Qin Feng looked at everyone and said loudly, everyone, let's hurry. This time, the cleaning must meet the standards. It must be spotless. This is our last day here, and we must stand our last watch properly. A new unit will be moving in tomorrow, and I don't want them to think the previous occupants were a bunch of slobs. It's now 2:15 p.m. Everything must be done by 3:15 p.m. I'll check personally. Dismissed. With the order given, everyone quickly dispersed, grabbing their tools and starting to clean their assigned areas. Although many were new here, they had gotten along well over the past few days. Therefore, during this last cleaning session, everyone put in extra effort. At this moment, Li Jiaxing swaggered over to the beleaguered Su Tiankai. Su Tiankai, why are you just standing there like a telephone pole? Hurry back to the dorm. Grab the small yellow basin and come with me. Su Tiankai was almost infuriated to the point of spitting blood. These days, he had been trained like a dog by Zhao Pengfei. Now, a new recruit was riding on his head. How much can I tolerate? I'm an officer. It's one thing for Qin Feng to not take me seriously, but why does this rookie think he can? Just as Su Tiankai was about to blow up, Li Jiaxing easily grasped him with one line. What's the matter, afraid of getting dirty, tired, or don't want to work? If you can't handle it, I'll report to the company commander. You shouldn't stay in the combat team. Go do some chores and logistics instead. Or should I send you back to the 4th company to feed the pigs with slop? Su Tiansai's face turned bright red, and his fists were clenched tightly. But soon, he relaxed his grip and reluctantly compromised. Can I get a couple of pairs of gloves? Ha ha ha. Don't worry, we have masks and gloves. Li Jiaxing, like an older brother caring for a younger one, put his arm around Su Tiansai's shoulder. Hurry and grab your little yellow basin. We need to hurry up. In a bit, I'll pass on all my tips and tricks to you. It looks easy, but there's a lot to learn. Su Tiansai's eyes twitched, and he was truly at a loss for words. At that moment, in the honor room of the Steel Knife Company, several soldiers were busy packing up. One by one, trophies, medals, and photographs were being carefully packed into boxes. They were very careful while packing, not only wrapping everything in cloth, but also stuffing the boxes with newspaper to prevent any damage. After all, they had a long journey ahead. And if these treasured items left by their predecessors were damaged along the way, it would be a great shame. Gu Xiong and Gua Haitao were on-site supervising, fearing that any mistakes might occur during the packing process. Just then, Qin Feng walked in from outside. Seeing the complex and reluctant expressions on the two men's faces, he softly said, "Company commander, instructor?" The two turned around, their eyes slightly red. Gu Xiong rubbed his eyes and asked, "Have you made all the arrangements over there?" Qin Feng nodded. "We've already started, and with some extra hands, it's much easier to clean up." Gu Xiong responded with a sound of acknowledgement, but said nothing more, instead gazing nostalgically at a tattered flag displayed in the glass case before them. The flag was crumpled. Its colors faded and darkened, almost beyond recognition. Yet, one could still faintly see the bold character Steel Knife. Gu Xiong asked, "Qin Feng, do you remember the question I asked you during the joining ceremony?" "I remember. Tell me, how many members does our Steel Knife Company have in total?" Qin Feng took a deep breath and answered loudly. "The Steel Knife Company has been established for 78 years, and in that time, a total of 7,984 people have become members, of which 4,324 sacrificed their lives for the country." Gua Haitao also asked, "Qin Feng, tell me, what is the pride of the Steel Knife Company?" Qin Feng's expression became solemn. Some companies are proud because they have produced a certain general. Some are proud because they have produced a certain combat hero. But the pride of the Steel Knife Company is the most sacred among all soldiers, because it comes from ourselves. As the 8,000th soldier of the Steel Knife Company, I will always remember all the predecessors who sacrificed in those 78 years of history. Without them, there would be no current glory of the Steel Knife Company, nor would there be the present combined Steel Knife Battalion. Qin Feng's words were powerful and resonant. The several veterans in the honor room who were packing stopped their movements, looking at Qin Feng with a mix of excitement and indescribable emotion. They seemed to see a beam of light in Qin Feng, a brilliantly dazzling light. Gu Xiong and Gua Haitao turned around together, placing their hands on his shoulders, their eyes filled with expectation. "Qin Feng, our Steel Knife Company was originally called the Big Knife Company, and that flag is the first flag of our company. Throughout the long years and the ravages of war, countless martyrs have sacrificed their lives to preserve it intact. In the long river of history, there are not many units that have managed to keep their first flag to this day. This is the honor of the Steel Knife Company, and it is also the honor of each and every one of us." The two of them smiled with anticipation. "Go ahead, Qin Feng, and retrieve this flag. It's time for us to take it and embark on a new journey." Qin Feng nodded vigorously, filled with reverence and admiration, stepping forward towards the weathered flag that lay in rest with the spirits of countless martyrs. The next day at noon, a green scene suddenly appeared at a train station in a certain city. Near the ticket-checking area in the waiting hall, two orderly lines of soldiers stood, carrying bags and holding their belongings, some even cradling boxes. Their expressions were serious, and they stood tall and straight. At that moment, the phrase strict discipline seemed to come to life. Many passengers waiting to board had put down their phones and cast curious glances in that direction. "Nyang Nyang, wake up. Don't sleep, look who that is." A mother holding a child pointed to the line in front of her. The girl, who looked only 3 or 4 years old, rubbed her eyes, still half asleep. "It's the uncles from the Liberation Army." She curiously turned to her mother and asked, "But Mom, why are all the uncles from the Liberation Army standing there? Why don't they sit down if there are chairs?" Her mother gently patted her head and smiled. "Because the uncles from the Liberation Army want to give their seats to you and everyone else." The girl nodded, her eyes wide open, already beginning to understand the greatness of soldiers. At that moment, 3 bolder girls whispered among themselves. Then they grabbed some drinks and bounced over to the line. These 3 girls were only around 20 years old, dressed like students. Even without deliberately wearing perfume, their youthful and lively aura still brought a refreshing breeze. This made nearby soldiers like Li Jiaxing, Qi Ming, and Lu Xiaowang shiver slightly, nearly breaking their military composure. The few of them caught a glimpse of the drinks in the girls' hands, and their hearts began to race. Could it be for me? At that moment, at least over 50 people in the line had this thought. It's a common tendency for many boys to daydream. Just a glance from a girl on the street can lead them to think, "She must like me, otherwise, why would she look at me?" In an instant, they could imagine scenarios for marriage and raising children to the end of life. Here they come. Everyone be composed, be composed. It must be that they are trying to strike up a conversation with me while delivering water. Anyway, there must be a share for me among these 3 bottles. In that moment, Li Jiaxing and the others puffed out their chests, looking like proud roosters. Even Zhao Pengfei silently stood on tiptoe, raising his head as if trying to appear taller. However, It was obvious that the three girls were not interested in them. Qin Feng was walking back and forth on both sides, responsible for maintaining order at the scene, when he noticed the sudden change in Li Jiaxing and the others. A look of confusion appeared on his face. Before he could figure out what was happening, a warm, fragrant breeze suddenly wafted from behind him. "Hey, handsome." Qin Feng turned around to find three tall girls in their 20s. The girl in the middle winked at him and handed him a bottle of drink. "Would you like some iced tea?" Just as Qin Feng was about to politely decline, the girls on either side each offered him a bottle of Sprite and a bottle of Coke. "If you don't want iced tea, how about Coke or Sprite?" Qin Feng was taken aback, seeming a bit flustered. As a handsome guy, he had been approached by girls before, but it was the first time he encountered three at once. Wow. Seeing this scene, Li Jiaxing and the others all felt their defenses go up. They had originally been happily thinking about how they could each get a share of the three bottles, but unexpectedly, all three beauties were aiming for Qin Feng. It was too unfair. In ancient times, someone who looked like Qin Feng would have been in serious trouble. Indeed, it was too disruptive to social harmony. Simply a male version of a femme fatale. Thankfully, he joined the military, or who knows how many beautiful girls would have fallen victim to such a charm. Hearing the chirping sounds from behind, Qin Feng covered his forehead, feeling utterly speechless. The honor guard was filled with tall and handsome guys, all over 1.8 meters. Why weren't they saying anything? Besides, in this day and age, handsome men belong to the country. At that moment, the girl on the left, noticing that Qin Feng seemed a bit shy, directly launched an attack. "I'm XX, here on vacation. I'm a sophomore this year. Can I get your contact number?" "Sorry, but he's already married." Just then, a faint voice came from behind Qin Feng. He didn't need to turn around to know it was Zhao Pengfei. No one else would have such a mischievous sense of humor. The three girls exchanged glances, their disappointment evident. They hadn't expected that Qin Feng would be so young and already married. As the girls left, Qin Feng turned back helplessly. "Squad leader, can you come up with a more believable excuse? Am I even of legal marriage age?" Zhao Pengfei grinned. Haha, I was going to say that you could already be a parent, but then I thought better of it." Qin Feng rolled his eyes in annoyance, but then turned to find Li Jiaxing and his gang glaring at him angrily. "What is wrong with you guys? Ugh, I just don't want to stand next to you. It's too much pressure." Qi Ming complained. "Yeah, Feng, next time we go out together, could you wear a mask like Yanghua? If not, at least put on some camouflage," Lu Xiaowang awkwardly suggested. "Hey, being your brother means our chances at romance are all blocked. You're not dating, and we want to." Li Jiaxing's words echoed the sentiments of many. Qin Feng rolled his eyes in annoyance. The country hasn't been repaid, and things aren't settled yet. What is there to talk about love? Can't we have some lofty ideals and great aspirations? "Not talking about you, Wu Jin," he added. Wu Jin, who was called out, felt a bit embarrassed and could only force a smile in response. Of course, Qin Feng's words were just a joke. Everyone has different reasons for joining the military. Feelings for one's country should be kept in the heart. What's most important is to focus on the present, live your life well, and stand your post properly. Soon, the station's announcement for boarding came through. Qin Feng and Gu Zhiyong led everyone to quickly board the train through a dedicated passage. This green train had several carriages specifically reserved for them. Once on board, everyone chattered away, some eating oranges, others munching on apples. Their faces lit up with smiles and excitement. For many, leaving their original living environment for a new place felt fresh and reminiscent of travel. However, this freshness would soon be worn away by the long journey ahead. This green train wouldn't go directly to their destination. It had to detour through other cities. After that, they would need to change trains a couple of times to finally reach their destination. Enduring over 10 hours in hard seats, from day to night, was a huge trial for everyone. By the time they got off at the transfer station to change trains, they all looked as wilted as overripe eggplants. Completely different from their spirited selves before boarding. "Everyone, perk up. Stand up straight," Qin Feng shouted at the platform. Only then did everyone manage to lift their spirits a little. "Let me handle it." Gu Zhiyong stepped up to organize the group and restore some discipline. But suddenly, a piercing explosion disrupted the entire night, causing everyone on the platform to turn in shock. Chapter 248, The Heartwarming Moment in the Waiting Hall. Whoosh. Boom. A fire meteor streaked across the sky, bursting into a colorful firework in the darkness. Immediately after, more fire meteors shot up. And as the dazzling flowers appeared in the sky, everyone on the platform had their eyes sparkling. It was as if they had all been paused. Looking up at the night sky, their faces filled with warmth. "What day is it today? Why are so many people setting off fireworks?" Lu Xiaowang suddenly asked. "The 24th day of the 12th month, Little New Year," Qin Feng replied. Many people froze for a moment, slightly lost in thought. The pace of the military was too fast, making them forget the date. In the north, Little New Year is usually celebrated on the 23rd day of the 12th month, while in the south, it is on the 24th. Although it is not as grand as the New Year, it is still a traditional day, and it holds a significant place in the hearts of the people. "I wish everyone a happy Minor New Year," Qin Feng said with a smile. The strong wind was blowing on the platform, making it feel quite chilly. However, everyone just tightened their clothing and exchanged warm wishes with smiles on their faces. Looking at the colorful fireworks in the distance, Qin Feng couldn't help but think of the lights in countless homes and his family. Time flies so fast. It feels like the new year is just around the corner. Qin Feng couldn't help but sigh. Yes, Zhao Pengfei patted him on the back. Time really does fly. Even a newbie has become a company commander. Qin Feng turned his head and lightly punched him on the chest, saying, I wish you a happy new year in advance. But today is not New Year's Eve, Zhao Pengfei replied. That's why I'm saying it's in advance. Qin Feng laughed. That way, I can be the first. Zhao Pengfei chuckled in disbelief. Your thinking is indeed ahead of time. Then I also wish you a happy new year. As the night grew colder, the platform was drafty. Everyone waited in the cold wind for almost an hour, but no train had arrived. Normally, this transfer should only take 40 minutes. So why was it taking over an hour? Gu Xiong felt something was off, so he took Qin Feng to the station hall. After inquiring with the staff, they learned that due to severe weather conditions, the train was delayed by 2 hours. Gu Xiong then ordered all the soldiers to wait in the hall. However, just a short while later, the delay time changed to 3 hours. When they heard that the delay had become 4 hours, everyone felt a bit anxious. At this time, the Spring Festival travel rush had begun, and the waiting hall was filled with many travelers eager to get home. Numerous trains traveling to and from the Sichuan-Chongqing area were experiencing delays. The passengers in the waiting area began to get restless, and the staff did their best to calm everyone down. The station leaders even sent boxes of instant noodles and hot water to the waiting area, continuously apologizing and explaining. We apologize, dear comrades. Due to the severe weather, your train will be delayed a bit longer. Please eat something to keep warm. How much longer do we have to wait? Qin Feng asked. We can't say for sure right now. We estimate it will be at least until dawn, came the reply. Hearing that they might have to wait until dawn, Qin Feng and Gu Xiong exchanged helpless glances. It was unavoidable to encounter bad weather while traveling. Fortunately, they provided hot water and instant noodles, so no one would have to wait on an empty stomach. Before long, everyone had a bowl of instant noodles in hand. Qi Ming slurped his noodles and asked, In our area, we eat dumplings on Minor New Year. What do you eat in Xishan? Are there any different customs? Li Jiaxing thought for a moment. Cutting spring couplets and sending the kitchen god are about the same, right? Oh, we eat sugar melons. Sugar melons? What is that? Curious looks immediately turned towards him, clearly intrigued by this special food. Li Jiaxing then looked a bit strange. Don't you all eat sugar melons? Never even heard of it. Everyone shook their heads. Every place has its own customs, so naturally, I've never heard of sugar gourds. Li Jiaxing, who was in the spotlight, immediately became lively and started to boast like a storyteller. On the other side, Gua Haitao and Gu Xiong brought instant noodles and approached Qin Feng. Qin Feng, what customs do you have in your region for the Minor New Year? Qin Feng thought for a moment and replied, Not much special, really. Cleaning up, having some good food. This should be pretty standard nationwide, right? Gua Haitao continued to ask. With the new year approaching, after being in the military for so long, do you miss home? Qin Feng smiled and said, It's alright, I guess. My time is usually filled with training and various chores. Since becoming the company commander, there are even more things to handle. It's not just about training. I have to think about the future development of the unit and manage various aspects. Sometimes, I feel like I need to split myself into two to keep up. I'm too busy to think about anything else. However, just now, when he saw the fireworks in the distance on the platform, he suddenly felt a bit homesick. Qin Feng, what's wrong? Gu Xiong looked at him meaningfully and said, If your parents knew how well you're doing in the military now, they would definitely be proud of you. Qin Feng smiled faintly, but said nothing. Pride aside, as long as they don't worry about him, that's good enough. The next day, at 8 in the morning, at a public institution in the region, as soon as Qin Aiming entered the unit, he was called into the office by the section chief for a scolding. Old Qin, you've been here long enough. Why are you getting more and more lax as the year ends? I said everyone must be at their desks by 7:50. Why did you arrive at 7:51? Qin Aiming, who had been an honest person his whole life, remained silent every time he was reprimanded. The section chief had taken advantage of his docile nature, venting his frustration from losing at mahjong the night before on him. The section chief took out a pack of cigarettes from the drawer, tilted his head, and lit one. Although he was not yet 40, his bloated face was full of a shrewd demeanor. He exhaled a puff of smoke and looked seriously at Qin Aiming, who was standing there awkwardly. I called you in for another matter. The unit's finances are tight, and we need senior employees to take the lead in voluntarily cutting their salaries. Considering your long service here and your diligent work, I won't make it too hard for you. You can lead with a cut of 500. When the benefits improve next year, we'll raise it back. How does that sound? As soon as he heard about the salary cut, Qin Aiming became anxious. Section chief, my salary is already a whole tier lower than those on official staff. I only take home a few thousand each month. If you cut 500, how will I manage? Old Qin, I know you have difficulties, But who doesn't have their own challenges? The section chief flicked his cigarette and pretended to be troubled. Before last October, didn't you take leave to travel? That means your financial situation is all right? Your son has also joined the military, so you don't need to spend money on him. Whether it's 500 less or more, life will go on, it. The section chief said. You can't say that. If you want to take the lead, you should follow my instructions. Qin Aiming's rebellious attitude immediately angered the section chief, who slammed the table and shouted, Qin Aiming, I'm notifying you now, not discussing this with you. As a member of the company, when it's time for you to contribute, you must contribute. Also, when your son is discharged, do you want him to join our unit and secure a stable job? If you do, then stop wasting time here and go to Director Lu's office to sign the papers. Qin Aiming felt as if he had been hit in a soft spot and lost his temper. Finding a good job these days is not easy, and securing a stable position is even harder. Although this company offers low wages and has difficult leadership, many graduates still compete fiercely to get in. At the time, he had considered that veterans would have priority in job placement, which is why he had allowed Qin Feng to join the military, hoping that he could come to work here and continue the family legacy after his discharge. Understood, Section Chief, I'll go sign it right away. Remember, if anyone asks, just say it was voluntary. I didn't force you, he said. Qin Aiming, suppressing a surge of frustration, left the office. At his age, with both elderly parents and children to care for, he didn't dare resist, even if he was bullied. At that moment, his phone rang. As soon as he answered, his wife Zhou Suilon's panicked voice came through. Old Qin, you need to come back quickly. Something big has happened at home. What happened? He asked. Hello? Hello? Before Qin Aiming could understand the situation, the call was abruptly disconnected. Startled, he rushed out without even saying goodbye, hopped on his electric scooter, and sped home. After the section chief exited the office, he discovered that Qin Aiming not only hadn't gone to sign the papers, but had also left his post without permission, which infuriated him. This Qin Aiming thinks he can act however he wants just because he's an old employee. He didn't even inform me before leaving. Does he not regard me as his section chief? Have Director Lu note this down. Deduct 2,000 from his year-end bonus as punishment and have him write a self-reflection. Chapter 249. You're not my son. I don't have a son like you. It was clearly 8 in the morning, but the sky was overcast. A light drizzle blurred the vision. A green train thundered down the tracks, startling a nearby pond. The fish beneath the surface popped their heads up for air in quick succession. Meanwhile, Qin Feng and others had successfully boarded the train and were continuing towards their destination. Inside the carriage, everyone was sprawled out asleep. There were too many people in the waiting hall last night, and no one had rested well. So they took advantage of the train ride to catch up on sleep. However, their sleeping positions were quite peculiar. Some had crawled under the seats, while others lay directly on the luggage racks. Fortunately, these were all exclusive carriages, so there was no need to worry about the image of the unit being compromised. Qin Feng was also leaning back in his seat, trying to get some rest. Suddenly, the train seemed to run over something, making a loud clattering noise. Awakened, Qin Feng turned his head and noticed a thick layer of white fog had formed on the window. As he raised his hand to wipe it, he immediately spotted a huge billboard in the distance. It read, Welcome to the Sichuan Chongqing region in bold letters. Qin Feng poked Wu Jin, who was sleeping on the shelf. Hey, what's up? Are we there yet? We're at your hometown, Qin Feng replied. Hearing this, Wu Jin flipped over and jumped down. He wiped the fog off the glass with his sleeve, staring intently at the billboard and the mountains in the background. At that moment, he grinned widely. Squad leader, do we have to change trains again later? Qin Feng glanced at him. What? Do you want to sneak home for a bit? Wu Jin chuckled. My home is near the station. It won't take more than an hour to go back and forth. 40 minutes is enough. Qin Feng smiled. As long as you can make it back on time. If you miss this train, you'll have to buy your own ticket. Thanks, squad leader. I'll definitely make it back on time. Wu Jin's face was beaming. He hadn't expected to be able to visit home during the changeover. Unfortunately, Wang Yimin's house was in the city, a bit far from here. Otherwise, he could not only visit home, but also drop by his father-in-law's house. At that moment, Li Jiaxing leaned in from behind, enviously saying, Hey, I really envy you. If this train could pass through Xishan, I do want to go back too and treat you all to our local specialties. After tasting them, you'd know just how bad the cafeteria noodles are. Hearing this, many, including Zhao Pengfei, laughed. It had been so long, yet this guy still remembered that incident. Qi Ming joked, let us skip the food. Chu Yunfei said, Xishan's cuisine isn't worth mentioning. Just have your dad drive that Maybach over and take us for a spin. Chen Sanchi chimed in, right. I've never even sat in a Maybach. What? Starbucks? I've never had that either. Someone immediately picked up the conversation. Young people's topics never need much prompting. Just a little nudge, and they could talk about anything, even quantum mechanics, for hours. Soon, everyone was chatting away, discussing everything under the sun. Somehow, the conversation shifted to achievements. When this topic came up, Qin Feng was like a mountain that couldn't be bypassed. Everyone knew their squad leader was a powerhouse. His rapid promotion was entirely due to the numerous medals he had earned. It could be said that the combined achievements of everyone present didn't match the value of Qin Feng's alone. Squad leader, can I ask you something? Niu Taijun suddenly inquired. Go ahead. With all the achievements you've made, does your family know? No, I haven't mentioned it. So, they don't even know you've become a squad leader? Yeah. Upon hearing Qin Feng's response, many people displayed expressions of disbelief. You should know that young people at this age often like to show off. Li Jiaxing, for instance, received a third-class merit and a commendation, and he had to make dozens of phone calls back home to brag about it. However, Qin Feng never mentioned anything to his family, which left everyone baffled. But Zhao Pengfei understood why Qin Feng had kept these matters to himself. As long as one performs well in the army and excels in training, receiving a commendation or a third-class merit isn't particularly difficult. However, obtaining a second-class merit is not so simple. It requires facing certain dangers. Not to mention, Qin Feng's first-class merit was earned at the cost of his life. Because of this, when reporters from military newspapers wanted to interview him later, Qin Feng politely declined. Thus, even in the news about the rescue at the fire scene, a pseudonym was used, and his real name did not appear. At that moment, Gu Xiong suddenly turned around and said to him, Qin Feng, receiving a merit is a good thing. You don't need to hide it from your parents out of fear for their worries. Also, I must tell you that your local armed forces have contacted us several times. They are preparing to send your merit plaque back home with great fanfare before the new year. Qin Feng was a bit surprised. Isn't this the kind of thing that is usually arranged for when I return home on leave? Gua Haitao took over the conversation and replied, that's usually the case. But given the timing of the troop rotation, you probably won't be able to take leave for at least half a year after arriving at the new location. And with the new year approaching, the leaders of your local armed forces decided to announce this news before the holiday. At the same time, they will also send your condolences and bonuses to your family, so your parents can have some pride when visiting relatives during the new year. Upon hearing this, Qin Feng felt a mix of emotions. Initially, he planned to return home adorned with medals and a military rank, but unexpectedly, the local armed forces couldn't wait and arranged everything in advance. However, Qin Feng understood that they meant well, so he couldn't say much. At that moment, his phone in his pocket suddenly vibrated. He picked it up and noticed it was an unfamiliar number, but the location showed it was from the Jiangsu region. Qin Feng frowned, thinking it might be a telemarketing call, and hung up. To his surprise, the call came through again shortly after. Typically, telemarketing calls don't call back. After a moment's hesitation, he answered the phone. Hello, is this Comrade Qin Feng? A voice on the other end, sounding like a man in his 30s, asked. Qin Feng, puzzled, replied, yes, this is me. Who are you? Hearing Qin Feng's voice, the man on the other end immediately exclaimed with joy, did you hear that? That's your son's voice, right? Old comrade, I swear I'm not lying. We are not scammers. Nonsense. Then there was a sound of someone slapping the table on the other side. Qin Feng was taken aback. He recognized the voice of his father, Qin Aiming. Dad, get lost. I don't have a father like you. As soon as Qin Feng spoke, he was reprimanded into silence by Qin Aiming. You're young and should learn something good. But instead you're committing telecom fraud, and your voice sounds quite similar too? Let me tell you, don't think just because I haven't served in the military. I don't understand anything. My son has only been in the army for half a year, and at most he's just a rookie. You talk about being a captain. About first class and second class merits. Are you kidding? He stood up, grabbed a stick, and angrily shouted at the two officers in front of him, get out of here right now, or I'll call the police. The train continued to chug along. Qin Feng listened to the noise on the other end of the phone, slowly covering his forehead. He sighed, feeling a mix of amusement and helplessness. Has this misunderstanding gotten a bit out of hand? Chapter 250, Heroic Sons and Daughters, a Family of Distinguished Merits. Xiaozhong. There's still a bit of an issue with this document format. You need to change the font like this, make it bold here, and then do it like this. In the office, the rotund section chief Wang was sitting next to the female intern at her workstation, under the guise of guiding her work. He was trying to take advantage of the situation. The female intern was terrified and kept shrinking away. Seeing this, section chief Wang not only didn't hold back, but became even more aggressive. Xiaozhong, I'm teaching you how to work properly. Are you even paying attention? He criticized unhappily. I am listening, but could you please move a bit to the side? I hardly have any space left, the female intern replied, clearly just graduated and lacking social experience. Not knowing how to handle such situations. Feeling slighted, section chief Wang leaned back slightly and coldly said, Xiaozhong, you seem to be a member under Qin Aiming, right? You need to straighten out your work attitude. You can't keep making mistakes like him. He.S. just an old hand who S muddled through to retirement. That S is life, but it'll be hard for me to promote you if you continue like this. Think carefully about whether you want to sign with a third-party labor dispatch or get a company position when your internship is over. Hearing the man threaten her with promotion, the female in turn bit her lip. She suppressed her disgust, but didn't explode. She regretted coming back to this rotten unit. If she had known it would be like this, she would have said anything to avoid it. Just as she hesitated about whether to resign after receiving her salary in a few days, a man with small glasses rushed over. Chief, 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 big news. There's big news. Big news. What big news? An earthquake. Kind of like an earthquake. Chin Aiming, his family is on TV, and many city leaders are there. What? Section Chief Wong widened his eyes in shock. Which channel? Without waiting for an answer, the man with small glasses immediately picked up the remote control on the desk and turned on the large television mounted in the corner. Many offices have such televisions. Although they are rarely used, they cannot be absent. The words of the man were heard by others in the office as well. At that moment, everyone put down their work and curiously gathered around. It's human nature to be a spectator, especially in many workplaces where people consider it a primary source of entertainment. The small-eyed colleague switched to the local channel, and the television was broadcasting a news report live. The screen showed a scene filled with the sounds of drums and firecrackers, with a crowd of onlookers on both sides. City officials walked along the sides, while two soldiers led the way ahead. They held a solid wooden plaque adorned with a large red flower, which prominently displayed the words "Home of the First-Class Meritorious Service." Home of the First-Class Meritorious Service? Someone exclaimed. Is there someone locally who received a first-class merit in the military? There's another plaque behind it. What does it say? Guardians of the People. Heroic sons and daughters, light of the city. Although everyone wasn't very familiar with the military's commendation system, they understood the meaning of these words. What kind of person can be called a guardian of the people? What kind of great achievements must one have to be called heroic sons and daughters? Light of the city? Just thinking about it, one can imagine how significant the honor must be. Moreover, none of the city leaders were walking in front of these two plaques, which shows just how valuable they are. What does this mean? Section Chief Wong furrowed his brows, looking puzzled at the small-eyed colleague beside him. You said Chin Aiming's family was on the news, but I don't see it. This first-class merit has nothing to do with him, does it? The small-eyed colleague jumped up anxiously, pointing at the television, and said, this plaque is being presented to their family. Look at the banner in the back congratulating Comrade Chin Fong for being awarded first-class merit. This Chin Fong is Chin Aiming's son. What? Section Chief Wong's eyes nearly popped out. He stepped forward, staring intently at the television, unable to believe it was true. How could this be possible? I've seen Chin Aiming's son. He's slick and obviously not serious. And he has only been in the army for 6 months. How could he possibly earn a first-class merit? Did the military leaders mix up the names? That doesn't make sense. Seeing Section Chief Wong's dumbfounded expression, the female intern who had been bullied immediately began to mock him. Section Chief Wong, take a better look. It's not just a first-class merit. Did you see the stack of certificates behind? 2 second-class merits, 2 third-class merits, and the city leaders even awarded an 88,000 bonus. Are you suggesting that the military leaders are confused, but our local leaders don't know what's going on either? Feeling humiliated, Section Chief Wong shot her a glare, signaling her to be quiet. But the female intern was already prepared to resign, so she defiantly glared back. Not only her, but colleagues who usually had a good relationship with Chin Aiming began to mock Section Chief Wong as well. They were openly and subtly saying that he always liked to bully and suppress Chin Aiming at work. Now that his son has achieved such an honor, even the city leaders came to congratulate him. Let's see if he dares to act arrogantly in front of them in the future. Director Wong was so angry that his face turned red, and he couldn't find a way to save face. Yet he couldn't come up with a single word to refute. He stared intently at the television, still holding on to a glimmer of hope. Perhaps it was just a mistake? The name Chin Fong wasn't uncommon. Locally, there were many variations like Chin Fong, and Chin Mad. It might just be a mix-up with the name, right? Most importantly, that kid had only joined the army for 6 months. At most, he was just a rookie soldier. How could that be? But soon, the little hope in Director Wong's heart was completely shattered. He saw the team on screen arriving at Chin Aiming's home, celebrating with drums and gongs. Watching the leaders step forward one by one, warmly shaking hands with Chin Aiming and his wife, Director Wong swallowed hard, cold sweat beading on his forehead. Because for someone like him, let alone himself, even the top leader of the unit wasn't someone you could just meet whenever you wanted. How could this be possible? Director Wong was filled with disbelief. Old Chin, a rather ordinary guy, could raise such an outstanding son? A first-class hero, and a living one at that. Just the title alone was staggering. What had he accomplished to attract so many leaders? Furthermore, each leader was so polite and enthusiastic. At this moment, the camera zoomed in on Chin Aiming and his wife. The couple looked overwhelmed, their faces reflecting the awkwardness and panic of honest folks. They never imagined that the 2 officers who had just visited were not fraudsters. Chin Fong hadn't lied. He had indeed achieved something in the army. Leaders, may I ask? Mother Zhou Mei stammered. My son, Chin Fong. What exactly did he accomplish to warrant such a grand reception? Chin Aiming nodded vigorously beside her. Having lived half his life, he had always followed the rules. At work, he was like an old workhorse, diligently doing his part. The only time he had been carefree was last year, when he sent Qin Feng off to join the army and took his wife on a spontaneous trip. So he never expected that such tremendous merit would fall upon their family. It felt like a dream. Seeing that the old couple was completely unaware of the situation, the leaders present exchanged glances. A colonel from the armed forces stepped forward, grasping Qin Aiming's hand, and asked, "Comrade Qin Aiming, do you really not understand how your son earned this first-class honor and the title of People's Guardian?" Qin Aiming shook his head, but he seemed to have guessed something in his heart. Was Qin Feng involved in some dangerous mission? At that moment, a city leader took over the conversation. "Comrade, do you remember the news last year about the gas explosion in the XX region that caused a fire?" Yes. Qin Aiming and Zhou Mei exchanged glances and nodded vigorously. That news even made it to national television. It caused quite a stir. A young man rushed into the fire and saved 46 teachers and children, and almost as they spoke, the old couple was left stunned. In the next moment, they all seemed to understand. Qin Aiming's tears kept welling up in his eyes, while Zhou Mei directly leaned on her husband's shoulder, crying uncontrollably. Qin Aiming trembled as he swallowed hard and asked, "That young man who saved lives, is he my son?" "Yes." The leaders present nodded vigorously. "That firefighting hero is indeed your son, Qin Feng." Zhou Mei's legs went weak, and she collapsed to the ground, crying inconsolably. Even Qin Aiming felt his mind go blank, barely able to stand. They had both seen the news report at that time. They even discussed how the soldiers' build resembled that of Qin Feng. Never did they expect that it was truly their son. Just thinking about the scene of Qin Feng falling from the building made their hearts ache like knives. As parents, they cared nothing for accolades or rewards. They only knew that their son had nearly lost his life saving others. Chapter 251, written into the County Chronicle, immortalized through the ages. Seeing the couple in tears. Both the onlookers and the leaders present were deeply moved. Often, the most touching moments come from sincere emotional expressions. No one expected that the couple would be completely unaware of such a significant event involving their son. "Comrades, you have a wonderful son." A city leader firmly grasped Qin Aiming's hand and said earnestly, "He is a man of iron and grit, a hero, and a pride for our local people. His deeds will be written into the County Chronicle, and his spirit is worth learning from by all of us." Hearing these words, Director Wang's legs went weak, and he fell to his knees. Others in front of the television were also shocked and covered their mouths. Perhaps ordinary people do not understand how significant it is to be written into the County Chronicle, but those of them working in public institutions are well aware. This cannot just be summarized as bringing glory to the family. It is truly a legacy that will last through the ages. With great effort, the bespectacled colleague helped Director Wang up and asked with concern, "Director, are you all right?" "I'm fine, really, I'm fine." Director Wang wiped the sweat from his forehead and almost leaned against the wall to return to his office. Seeing Director Wang in such a pitiful state, his colleagues immediately scoffed. In the workplace, Qin Aiming had always been a diligent and selfless good person. Although he was a senior, his good nature meant he got along well with everyone. Everyone knew about Director Wang's decision to cut Qin Aiming's salary and felt it was unjust. But no one dared to speak up for fear of jeopardizing their own jobs, knowing they would face retribution from Director Wang. But now it was different. Director Wang had kicked a hard stone. Suppressing the father of a first-class meritorious person at work and maliciously cutting his salary and bonuses was simply outrageous. As the office door closed, the bespectacled colleague immediately approached Director Wang and inquired, "Director, what do you think about the salary cut for Qin Aiming?" "Cut? What more do you want to cut? Do you want to ruin me?" Director Wang wanted to light a cigarette, but his hands were shaking badly, and he failed to light it twice. Frustrated, he slammed the cigarette and the lighter down on the table. "Let me tell you, it's a good thing Lao Qin hasn't signed that document yet. If he had, we would both be in big trouble," he urged. "Hurry up and change it to a salary increase, using the standard of the public institution. The year-end bonus should also be increased by 30%. Additionally, I need to report this matter to the higher-ups immediately. Ideally, we should also give his family a condolence bonus in the name of the unit." The young man with glasses looked a bit taken aback. "Director, isn't this a bit too grand? It's his son who received the first-class merit, not Qin Aiming himself. Are you out of your mind? Do you not understand what it means to have a hero's child?" Director Wang slammed the table in anger. "Firefighting hero, first-class meritorious service, People's Guardian, and it's even written in the county records. Do you know what this means? It's a legacy that will last through the ages. How many people in our locality can enjoy such treatment? In the future, during festivals, even city leaders will line up to bring gifts to their home. In our small unit, even our small leaders would have to step aside to visit." The young man gulped nervously, beads of sweat on his forehead. "So, should we go right now? Maybe we can get familiar with those big shots?" "Of course," Director Wang immediately instructed. "Hurry up and prepare a few bottles of good liquor and some fine cigarettes. I need to personally go over and apologize. If I delay, I might lose my position as director. Yes, I'll arrange it right away. Dad, Mom, please don't cry. I'm doing fine, really. I wasn't hurt at all. Not even a scar. It looked dangerous at the time, but I wasn't in any real danger. Trust me. Look at me. I'm perfectly fine. You see, I've been promoted out of turn. I'm now a captain, acting as the company commander, and I'll be going to military school this September. Yes, I'm not with the troops right now. I'm on a train. The troops have a mission, so I came out, but it's not a dangerous mission. Just a regular business trip. Dad, Mom, don't worry. I will take good care of myself. You both take care of your health and travel more when you have the chance. I will call you regularly to check in. After an hour-long video call, Qin Feng's eyes were already red. Seeing his parents tearful made him feel a heavy heart. As he had anticipated, his parents couldn't handle the news well at first. He had been worried they would be concerned, which was why he had kept it from them. But seeing the plaque that hung on the wall at home marked, home of a first-class meritorious service, along with the care and greetings from local leaders in front of the camera, Qin Feng felt very happy. They say parents hope their children will achieve greatness. What child doesn't wish to accomplish something significant, to bring pride to their family and make their parents feel proud? Qin Feng rubbed his eyes to calm his excited emotions. After splashing his face with cold water, he returned to his seat. Has the plaque been sent back? Seeing that Qin Feng still had slightly red eyes, Zhao Pengfei handed him a tissue. Yes, my parents are very happy. All our relatives and friends came over. The local armed forces and city leaders sent bonuses and many gifts. They even said they would write my name and deeds into the county annals. As he spoke, there was an indescribable pride on Qin Feng's face. Zhao Pengfei wore a comforting smile, equally proud of Qin Feng. When everyone heard that Qin Feng's commendation plaque was ceremoniously sent back home, accompanied by drums and gongs, their faces were filled with envy. Especially that guy Li Xiangkong, who had once been so distraught over a breakup with his girlfriend. Indeed, he had also been recruited by Qin Feng due to his excellent training performance. As a southerner, he was well aware of the significance of such an honor. If Qin Feng were from the Guangdong region, that plaque would definitely be hung in the most prominent place in the ancestral hall. The family tree would be updated, a monument erected, becoming the pride of the entire clan. Throughout history, which scholar or poet hasn't wished to be remembered forever? Even princes and nobles desire to be revered by future generations. Yet, a commoner like Qin Feng, with no background, could enjoy such treatment. This was truly supreme glory. Brother Feng, my admiration for you is as vast as the flowing river. Lu Xiaowang was about to recite a line when Qin Feng pushed him aside. Taking a deep breath, he said loudly, "Don't envy me. Everyone just needs to perform well and contribute to the country and the people. Sooner or later, you'll enjoy the same treatment as me." Qin Feng's words were brief but highly infectious. He proved through his actions that being a soldier could indeed lead to success and earn the respect of many. For the next stretch of the journey, everyone was immersed in beautiful fantasies, hoping for an opportunity to perform well. They yearned to return home with a commendation plaque, adding glory to their parents. Company commander. At this moment, the train began to slow down, and Wu Jin hurried over. The train is about to arrive. Can I take some time to go home? Qin Feng nodded. All right, but remember to come back before the train departs. Normally, this would be against the rules. However, rules are rigid, while people are flexible. It would be unreasonable not to allow someone to take a quick look at home when passing by. Soon, the train gradually came to a stop at the platform. Just as everyone was packing up and preparing to disembark, a sudden violent tremor surged from below. What is happening? Is there a malfunction with the train? Gu Xiong rushed up from the back with his team. But as they looked at the swaying sign on the platform, Qin Feng suddenly felt a chill down his spine. A sense of foreboding creeping into his heart. Combining the current severe weather with various anomalies, he suddenly realized something. Get out of here. Quickly. Leave the carriage and go to an open area. Qin Feng shouted, seemingly angering an invisible giant. It began to rage, pounding the earth furiously. The huge ceiling began to shake, and cracks appeared on the platform. Even the tracks were lifted significantly. Qin Feng's mind thundered like an explosion. At that moment, he felt as if the entire world was violently trembling. Chapter 252. Hurry up, your family needs you more. Mom, I want my mom. Stop taking your luggage. Saving your life is more important. Run. Don't push, everyone. Don't push. Come this way. All of you come this way. The cries echoed, merging into a chorus of screams and wails. The ground trembled, and the roof shattered. Everyone in the waiting room was desperately trying to escape. At this moment, the ground rolled like ocean waves. Even standing still posed a risk of falling, let alone running on it. Quick, run to the square. Everyone, run to the open area. Gu Xiong led a group at the entrance to help disperse the crowd, but their shouts were drowned out by the chaos. Just as most people were fleeing the waiting hall, a rumbling sound echoed again. The earth shook violently, as if some monster was about to break through from the ground. Soon, The train station behind them began to shake violently and tilted in one direction in the blink of an eye. Run, run, the train station is going to collapse. Accompanied by a series of piercing screams, the building behind them collapsed like a stack of blocks with a thunderous crash. Yellow dust surged into the sky, seemingly blocking out the sun. Watching the train station turn into ruins in an instant, the faces of those who escaped were filled with terror. Qin Feng led two women to a safe spot, breathing heavily with lingering fear. The others in the group were not in a much better state, their faces pale. The feeling of narrowly escaping death and the adrenaline rush left everyone feeling uneasy and weak. Just moments ago, when the earthquake first struck, they had immediately sought refuge in an open area. Instead, they had all followed Qin Feng and Gu Xiong into the waiting hall, risking their lives to help with the emergency evacuation. Fortunately, the phrase well-trained proved its worth at that moment. In just 2 minutes, they had successfully evacuated the vast majority of civilians from the station. Although many were injured by falling debris and fluorescent lights during the evacuation, thankfully, there were no life-threatening injuries, and the civilians seemed to be okay. Qin Feng turned to look at the vast ruins after the dust settled, feeling increasingly heavy-hearted. He knew that beneath those ruins, many lives were uncertain. Qin Feng, I'll take people to rescue. You stay here to tend to the injured. Before he finished speaking, Gu Xiong had already led a group with shovels rushing forward. Many young men, seeing this, also voluntarily joined the rescue team. In such a situation, every extra effort could increase the chances of survival for those trapped under the rubble. Facing this situation, Qin Feng didn't hesitate for a moment. He immediately directed the remaining people to start tending to the injured civilians. At this moment, Qin Feng was most worried about the disaster situation in other areas. This train station was not very large. It was just a stop on the outskirts of the city. If even the suburbs were affected so severely, what about other places? What would the scene look like in the city center, residential areas, and schools? Qin Feng dared not think any further. He could only try to suppress his thoughts as much as possible. Soon, he had finished treating one injured person and began to bandage the next. In the military, first aid is a mandatory subject for every soldier. Therefore, even if they are not medics, they can still provide effective treatment to the injured. Wu Jin, I'll take care of this injured person. You go. Before Qin Feng could finish his sentence, his pupils suddenly constricted. Earlier, Wu Jin had been facing him with the left side of his face, so he hadn't noticed. Now, Qin Feng saw that the right side of Wu Jin's face was covered in blood, which looked particularly disturbing. But he seemed completely oblivious, continuing to bandage the injured civilians quickly. Wu Jin, you're hurt. Oh, it's just a minor injury. It's nothing, Captain. Wu Jin turned his head and forced a smile at Qin Feng. A rock hit my eyebrow. The bleeding has mostly stopped. It's fine. Qin Feng pulled him over. What do you mean it's fine? You're so focused on others that you're putting your own life at risk. Captain, really? It's nothing. Don't move. I'll help you bandage it. Without further ado, Qin Feng quickly used alcohol and coagulation powder to disinfect and stop the bleeding. Then, he wrapped Wu Jin's head with gauze to prevent infection from the bleeding. After finishing all this, Qin Feng suddenly seemed to remember something. Wu Jin, we're fine here. Hurry back and check on your family. Hearing Qin Feng's words, Wu Jin visibly shook. He glanced worriedly in the direction of his home and then shook his head. I'm not leaving. They need me here. I'm a soldier. I have to. Your family are also civilians. They need you too. Qin Feng's voice suddenly rose significantly. The area affected by this earthquake is definitely not small. Your home is nearby, and your parents and family might also be injured. You must go back and check on them right away. Wu Jin gritted his teeth, struggling with his decision, but the soldier's sense of duty prevented him from becoming a coward. Captain, I can't leave. They need me here. I can't be a deserter. To hell with that. I'm ordering you as your captain to immediately go check on the disaster situation near your home. Qin Feng grabbed him and angrily pushed him out. Now, you go back and check the situation. After you ensure your family is safe, come back. Nayudijin, you go with him. Return to the team as soon as you finish. Yes, Nayudijin was no longer his usual playful self. He quickly pulled Wu Jin forward and ran ahead. Squad leader, don't hesitate. The captain has given the order. You are executing a command now. Disaster relief is like firefighting. Every second you delay puts your family in danger. Hurry up. Thinking of his parents' safety, Wu Jin ultimately stopped hesitating and ran towards home with Nayudijin. At the same time, his heart was filled with hope, hoping that nothing would happen, hoping that no one would be injured. Under Qin Feng's organized arrangements, everyone quickly bandaged the injured. After finishing, they rushed to the ruins to help. However, without the aid of heavy machinery, those massive stones and collapsed walls were impossible to move. With just their efforts, the impact was minimal. Yet even so, no one stopped their actions. At that moment, the phrase working together was vividly embodied. In the face of disaster, whether in military uniform or as ordinary citizens, everyone was doing their utmost to assist in the rescue. Through their relentless efforts, large concrete walls were chipped away into smaller pieces and collectively moved aside. Lives trapped under the rubble were dragged out with tremendous effort. As more and more people were rescued, rather than feeling tired, everyone felt even more motivated. But just when they saw a glimmer of victory, Qin Feng felt a slight tremor beneath his feet. He seemed to sense something and suddenly pulled two people beside him away from the ruins without a word, urgently shouting, "Get down! Get away from the ruins! There's an aftershock!" At Qin Feng's warning, everyone hurriedly left the ruins. They all knew the power of aftershocks. If one hit, they wouldn't just be unable to rescue anyone, but they themselves would also be buried under the rubble. However, this time, Qin Feng was mistaken, because this was not an aftershock at all. It was something even more ferocious and destructive than before. Chapter 253. Unity in Adversity, Earthquake Relief on a Mountainous Road. Heavy rain poured down. The violent earthquake had turned the once smooth road into a jumbled mess. At the same time, a large number of boulders rolling down from the mountain had completely blocked this rescue route. The 63rd Division had been conducting a live-fire exercise nearby, and upon learning of the earthquake, they immediately halted their drills. Following orders from higher-ups, they rushed to the disaster area with rescue supplies and equipment. But no one expected the earthquake's power to be so immense that even the road was blocked by landslides caused by the quake. "Hey, Commander. We are currently on our way to the disaster area and have reached the outskirts of the city on Highway 329. However, the landslide has blocked the road, and we are preparing to take a detour via the second bridge." "What? The bridge has collapsed? Then what are we?" Yes, understood. No matter the difficulties, we will reach the disaster area as soon as possible to conduct rescue operations. Rest assured, the disaster situation is the order. We will immediately initiate rescue efforts upon arrival." The colonel hung up the phone, wiped the rainwater from his face, and looked sternly at the pile of boulders ahead, seemingly making a decision in his heart. At that moment, a major came forward and anxiously asked, "Sir, what should we do now? Should we turn back and take the detour via the second bridge?" The colonel shook his head. "I plan to go over it directly." "Go over it?" The subordinate looked shocked. The pile of rubble in front was at least 5 or 6 meters high, equivalent to 2 stories. Moreover, loose stones continued to roll down the mountain, posing a constant threat to life. Even if people could make it across, vehicles and heavy machinery would not be able to pass. Consequently, even if they reached the scene, their rescue efforts would be minimal. "Commander, this is too dangerous. If things go wrong, many lives could be lost. We should take the detour via the second bridge. At least heavy equipment can get through." The major turned to her with bloodshot eyes and said, "There's no time left. We are out of time. This earthquake is not a 7.2. The latest data from the Seismic Monitoring Center indicates that the intensity has reached 7.5. The second bridge has collapsed, and most of the bridges and roads leading to the disaster area have suffered severe damage. We can't take a detour or waste any more time. The people in the disaster area can't wait." Upon hearing this, the subordinates were left speechless in shock. A 7.5 magnitude earthquake is capable of catastrophic destruction. With the roads and bridges destroyed, they had no other options left. The major wiped the rain off his face and shouted, "Pass the order down to Team B and Team C to carry supplies and rescue equipment and follow me across. Team A will stay behind, and after we pass, use explosives to clear all the debris, aiming to restore road access as quickly as possible. This road must be opened. It is not only a rescue route, but also a lifeline for the people in the disaster area." "Yes," everyone shouted in response. Team C and B gathered supplies and rescue equipment, following the commander as they began the perilous climb over the 2-story-high pile of stones. Aftershocks had not ceased, and loose stones occasionally fell from above. It's important to note that when an object reaches a certain acceleration, even a stone the size of a thumb can have the impact of a bullet. Stones whizzed past them, some were hit on the arms, others on the back, and some suffered serious head injuries. Yet, not a single person halted their progress. They continued to climb with all their might. The people in the disaster area were still waiting for them, and the soldiers took it upon themselves to protect the citizens. Even if they were to perish on this rescue route, they would charge forward without hesitation. The earthquake's intensity had risen from 7.2 to 7.5, equivalent to detonating 1,000 bombs simultaneously. The affected area spanned several surrounding counties and cities, leading to immeasurable losses. The government dispatched all available resources to the disaster area for rescue efforts. Troops stationed nearby, along with armed police, public security, firefighters, and medical personnel, all responded to the call and rushed to the scene. People from all walks of life, upon hearing the news, contributed what they could, financial support and manpower. A large quantity of drinking water, convenience food, fruits, vegetables, tents, sleeping bags, and other supplies were rapidly transported to the disaster area. In the face of disaster, the people showcased remarkable solidarity, truly embodying the spirit of mutual support in times of need. At this moment, the entire nation was concerned for the disaster area, praying for the affected citizens. At this point, Qin Feng and others had already left the train station, spontaneously arriving at the center of the city for emergency rescue. The situation is dire. Due to signal disruptions, the exact level of disaster remains unclear, but it is certain that the destruction caused by this earthquake is significant. The city center now resembles a scene of devastation. The once smooth asphalt roads are now wrinkled and uneven, like the deep lines on the face of an elderly woman. Trees are toppled haphazardly along the roadside, and streetlights appear to have been violently broken, blocking the path. The scattered cars, fallen billboards, and neon signs offer a glimpse of the area's former prosperity. However, at this moment, most of the shops and buildings lining the streets have turned into piles of rubble. Decades of economic development have been wiped out in an instant. Even more heartbreaking is the sight of numerous ragged disaster victims by the roadside. Their eyes are hollow, faces marked by confusion and anxiety after experiencing fear. In the distance, many people kneel among the ruins, crying out in anguish. This scene brings tears to the eyes of everyone present, including Qin Feng. It feels as though an invisible hand is squeezing their hearts, making it hard to breathe. The sight before them resembles a hell on earth. In this moment, everyone truly realizes the terror of natural disasters. They can easily obliterate a city. Gu Xiong wiped his eyes and was about to give the order to commence rescue operations when an elderly man approached, carrying a pole and a bucket. "Is there water?" the old man asked in a hoarse voice, dressed in tattered clothes. He appeared to have just escaped from the earthquake. Qin Feng quickly handed over his water bottle and asked, "Where are you heading, sir?" The old man gulped down the water and returned the bottle, saying, "I don't know. What about your family? Are they all right?" Gu Xiong followed up with concern. The old man's eyes glazed over momentarily before he slowly shook his head. "They're all gone. I'm the only one left. My whole family, 5 of us, has perished." He lifted the towel covering the bucket, revealing an injured puppy inside. "Now, it's just me in it." With that, the old man sighed softly, hunched over, and walked down an unknown path. Watching the old man's retreating figure, everyone could no longer hold back their tears. The most painful thing in the world is for a parent to bury their child. This earthquake has left the old man with nothing, but they know that in this disaster area, there are many more like him. Qin Feng took out a bright flag and draped it over a steel pipe by the road, shouting loudly, "Brothers, the disaster is our command. We must muster all our strength. Countless disaster victims are waiting for our rescue. United as one, we will strive for a comprehensive victory in the fight against this disaster." Yes, a fiery red flag was raised high, like a faint flame bringing a glimmer of hope to the disaster area. Chapter 254, Bottomless Despair. Inside a makeshift disaster command center constructed from tents, a large number of staff members are wearing headsets, their fingers rapidly tapping on keyboards. A massive amount of disaster area information is being transmitted here for compilation. Finally, specialized personnel will conduct unified command and improve the deployment of disaster relief efforts. At this moment, in front of a large map, General Li Changzheng is listening with a stern expression to a report from the Chief of Staff. Currently, it has been 12 hours and 30 minutes since the earthquake occurred, with the disaster area covering 4 cities, 6 counties, and more than 20 surrounding towns. The roads leading to the affected areas have seen 1/3 of their sections restored for normal passage. We have urgently airlifted a batch of large rescue equipment to the scene. At the same time, donated supplies from caring individuals across society are also en route. Rescue personnel from other provinces will gradually arrive tomorrow. Li Changzheng furrows his brows. What is the current situation regarding the earthquake? Any new updates from the Earthquake Monitoring Department? The Chief of Staff replies, according to the monitoring, aftershocks are still ongoing, but their frequency is gradually decreasing. We must not let our guard down. Li Changzheng says seriously, during the organization of the rescue, everyone must be cautious of the impacts of the aftershocks. Otherwise, a slight misstep could turn the rescue operation into a second disaster scene. Understood, the Chief of Staff nods. Additionally, Li Changzheng presses his fists on the table, staring at the map of the disaster area, and speaks heavily. Notify all troops to clear the roads when encountering mountains and build bridges when meeting water. They must rush to the disaster area for rescue. Relying solely on the current manpower for rescue is simply insufficient. The severely damaged roads must be restored quickly to allow more large equipment to reach the scene. The rescue work is urgent. Every minute and every second counts, as lives are being lost, and we are the last hope for the people. Yes. The Chief of Staff swiftly conveys the order. As time passes and the rescue efforts continue to deepen, more and more troops receive orders and swiftly rush into the disaster area for rescue operations. When those red flags appear in the disaster area like beacons in the sight of the affected people, many of them shed hot tears at their most helpless moments. The People's Liberation Army comrades have arrived, We are saved. In the country, the phrase the People's Liberation Army has come signifies that while the situation is serious, it is manageable. As long as military personnel are present, no matter how great the danger, they can always turn the tide. Just seeing that shade of national defense green brings an inexplicable sense of comfort. It has been a full 36 hours since the earthquake occurred. In the northern part of the city, a heap of ruins that should have been a commercial center is now the site of extensive rescue efforts by soldiers, volunteers, and rescue personnel. At this moment, Ge Jiong stumbles over and loudly calls out to Zhao Pengfei and others, who are also engaged in rescue work. Hurry up. Let's take a half-hour break to replenish food and water. Noticing that no one is responding, Ge Jiong raises his voice and calls out again. This time, everyone hears him and slowly turns to look. Exhaustion is written across their faces, their expressions vacant, and their gazes hollow. Everyone is exhausted to the point of numbness. Completely worn out. It has been a full 36 hours since the earthquake struck. They have been operating like a machine running at full capacity, hardly taking any breaks. Continuous high-intensity work and mental pressure have pushed everyone's bodies to the brink of collapse. Therefore, Ge Jiong had no choice but to order everyone to take turns resting. He understands that this battle cannot be won in just a day or two. To achieve victory in disaster relief efforts, preparations for a prolonged battle must be made. Right now, the soldiers' physical and mental limits have been reached. If they don't rest soon, it's uncertain how many will collapse from exhaustion. Upon receiving the order, the members of the first company were quickly forced to rest. Only the second company remained on the scene, continuing the search for survivors. In the open area, some volunteers had already prepared food and water. Due to severe disaster conditions leading to a shortage of supplies, they only had steamed buns, pickled vegetables, and water for now. Even so, everyone was still wolfing down the food, trying to replenish their energy as quickly as possible. Many were chewing their food without even swallowing it yet, while the fatigue crashed over them like waves, causing them to lean against the roadside and fall into a deep sleep. Seeing this scene, the affected locals were deeply moved, tears streaming down their faces. They were so young, as youthful as one's own children. At an age meant for play and enjoyment, they bore heavy burdens, becoming the backbone of the nation and the people. Zhao Pengfei, go call Qin Feng down. Others had taken 2 or 3 rounds of rest, but he hadn't rested at all. If this continued, something would go wrong. At Ge Jiong's reminder, Zhao Pengfei's gaze turned toward the figure still engaged in rescue efforts, his face showing deep concern. He took 2 steamed buns and a bottle of water, climbed up the rubble, and reached Qin Feng's side. Qin Feng, take a break. It's been 36 hours. You haven't eaten or slept at all. If this continues, something will happen. I'm fine, squad leader. I feel like I still have energy, Qin Feng replied, a bit wearily wiping the sweat from his forehead. He forced a tired smile, his pale, cracked lips barely able to manage it. But Zhao Pengfei noticed the bloodshot eyes and the worn-out gloves, which were already torn and ragged. His fingers were bleeding, and his condition was extremely poor. He seemed as if a strong wind could knock him over. Without waiting for Qin Feng's response, he grabbed his arm and pulled him to the open area, speaking in a very stern tone. Qin Feng, I know you want to save more people, but your current state is not good. You must stop and rest for a while, or the next one needing rescue will be you. Although you hold a higher position than I do, if you still regard me as your old squad leader, then you must immediately take an hour to rest and eat and drink. He could ignore others' words, but he couldn't defy Zhao Pengfei's. With no other choice, Qin Feng had to take off his gloves, but they scraped against the wounds on his fingers. He frowned slightly and let out a soft hiss of pain. However, in front of Zhao Pengfei, he forced a calm smile and took the steamed bun and water, gulping them down. The old squad leader was right. 36 hours of continuous, high-intensity work had pushed his body to its limits. Although he had a system and his physical strength exceeded that of ordinary people, he could not endure such consumption indefinitely. He was well aware that this rescue operation would be a prolonged battle. Yet, every time he stood on the ruins, Qin Feng hoped he could contribute a little more. As if by doing so, he could save one more person. Looking around at the vast stretches of rubble, he felt a surge of helplessness. The magnitude 7.5 earthquake had brought catastrophic destruction to the entire city. Without heavy machinery, relying solely on human strength was far from enough. Now, he could only hope that the roads would be cleared soon to allow more heavy equipment to enter the disaster area. Only then would there be hope for those trapped beneath the debris. Qin Feng quickly finished the steamed bun and prepared to lie down and rest for half an hour. Just then, he suddenly saw 2 figures running quickly from a distance. It was Wu Jin and Niu Taijun, who had been missing for quite some time. Without thinking, Qin Feng rushed to meet them, but as he got closer, he froze. Niu Taijun's face looked terrible, a stark contrast to his usual cheerful demeanor. Wu Jin, on the other hand, appeared like a soulless zombie, his expression blank and his eyes filled with an unfathomable despair. Meanwhile, In a maternal and child health hospital less than 100 meters away, a battle against death had quietly begun. Director, the building is tilting severely. We must evacuate quickly. All the glass in the maternal and child health hospital had shattered, and the structure was leaning. A horrifying crack was clearly visible on the back of the building, as if it had been violently slashed. Yet, despite this, many medical staff were still rushing around anxiously. Seeing the head nurse burst into his office in a panic, the director slammed his hand on the table and shouted, "Evacuate? Where do we evacuate to?" "Within 100 miles, aside from our building, which is slightly better, everything else is in ruins. We have 30 pregnant women inside, and their conditions are not good. They need professional equipment to ensure safe delivery. Do you understand?" The head nurse was equally frantic. "But director, staying here isn't a solution either. Giving birth isn't a short-term thing. What if there's an aftershock and the building collapses? We'll all be buried." The director's face darkened as he found himself in a dilemma. If they evacuated recklessly and encountered complications or severe bleeding during labor, the situation could become extremely dangerous without water, electricity, or communication signals. If they continue to stay in this dangerous building, any slight tremor could bury all medical staff, including herself, and the pregnant women beneath the rubble. The question of whether to leave or stay is critical. Watching the clock on the wall tick away, the director knows that they are racing against death. Every second of hesitation increases the danger for everyone inside the building. But right now, aside from the nearby temple, where else can they go? The director is uncertain whether the temple's abbot would risk breaking their vows to take them in. If unwilling, where would they go? The director's heart feels like an ant on a hot pan, in extreme agony. At that moment, she suddenly sees soldiers in green uniforms searching through the rubble nearby. The director looks at the temple in the distance, then at the soldiers searching below, preparing to seek their help. "Niu Taijun, what is the situation?" Qin Feng pulls Niu Taijun aside to ask if something happened at Wu Jin's home. Niu Taijun shakes his head, then nods, followed by a sigh. This makes Qin Feng want to give him a couple of slaps. "What is going on with your head shaking and nodding? Hurry up and speak." Squad leader. Here's the situation. Niu Taijun sighs helplessly. The squad leader's home is a self-built house. When the incident happened, his parents were in the yard, so they narrowly escaped, only sustaining minor injuries. However, their neighbors, including his grandparents and aunts and uncles, were not so lucky, especially his second uncle's family. All 6 members perished. The image of that scene makes Niu Taijun feel incredibly distressed and hard to express. Qin Feng falls silent, probably able to imagine the horrific scene. Large buildings like train stations and shopping malls have turned to ruins in the earthquake. How could ordinary self-built houses possibly escape? Qin Feng glances back at Wu Jin, unsure how to offer comfort. In such a situation, even the words of condolence feel inadequate. "You just returned. Were you helping with the rescue?" "We wanted to help. But those concrete slabs are too heavy for the 2 of us to move," Niu Taijun says. The entire village where the squad leader lives has basically had every house collapse, and we couldn't find anyone else to help. Qin Feng asks, "Then why did it take you so long to come back?" Niu Taijun gives a bitter smile. "Squad leader, do you remember the squad leader's girlfriend?" Qin Feng's pupils constrict. Feeling increasingly uneasy, Niu Taijun continues. "The girl named Wang Yimin lives in a neighborhood in the south of the city. We had no transportation, so we ran all the way there." Qin Feng holds his breath and asks, "What about that girl? She's gone." Niu Taijun's eyes begin to well up. His voice choked. "When we got there, it was already dark, and the whole neighborhood had turned into a pile of ruins, making it impossible to identify which building was which. The squad leader was frantically searching through the ruins, not stopping for a moment from night until day. No matter how I tried to persuade him, it was useless." "Have you found her?" I asked. "Do you think someone could survive under a collapsed 5-story building?" Niu Taijun covered his face, sobbing uncontrollably. "My sister-in-law lived on the 2nd floor, the lowest level. Even if we brought in a crane, we might not be able to find her immediately." Qin Feng felt a sharp pain in his heart. The face of Wang Yimin appeared in his mind, eating oranges at the guard booth, bringing local specialties for everyone from afar. She was such a down-to-earth girl. But how quickly things changed. Just a few days had passed, and she was gone. Humanity is so fragile in the face of nature. Qin Feng turned to look at Wu Jin, who was still standing there in a daze. He knew Wu Jin's soul had already died, leaving behind just an empty shell. Life had been moving in a positive direction, and Wu Jin had finally found hope for the future. Marriage and children were on the horizon. But all the beauty had been abruptly ended by this earthquake. Taking a deep breath, Qin Feng said to Niu Taijun, "You've worked hard too. Go eat something and take a break." Niu Taijun shook his head vigorously. "I'm not hungry or tired. I'm just worried about our squad leader. I'm afraid he won't be able to hold on. I'm afraid he might do something reckless." "He won't." Qin Feng forced a bitter smile. "Wu Jin is a tough man. Nothing can crush him. Besides, his parents are still alive. He wouldn't do anything foolish." It's just Qin Feng paused. Everything happened so suddenly. He needs time to heal and to forget. Upon hearing this, Neo Taijun could no longer contain his suppressed emotions. He squatted down, burying his face in his knees and crying uncontrollably. In recent days, he had seen too many corpses and too much devastation. Even though he hadn't lost anyone close in this disaster, the shared pain had already overwhelmed him. Throughout this ordeal, Neo Taijun had been caring for Wu Jin's feelings, trying his best not to lose control, but now he truly couldn't bear it anymore. Qin Feng looked at Neo Taijun crying on the ground, filled with helplessness. Although the military had taught them a lot and given them extraordinary courage and determination, in the end, they were just ordinary people with beliefs who pretended to be strong. They also had vulnerabilities, parents, and things they didn't want to face. But right now, there was no time for them to grieve. In times like this, soldiers had even less right to shed tears. If they were crushed, who could the civilians rely on? Qin Feng pulled Neo Taijun up from the ground and pushed him towards Zhao Pengfei. Take him to eat something and drink some water. Okay, Zhao Pengfei replied, feeling equally distressed after understanding the situation. But at that moment, he had no idea how to comfort Wu Jin or what to say. One can only hope for Qin Feng, wishing that he could use his high emotional intelligence to help Wu Jin alleviate some of his pain and lift his spirits a bit. However, Qin Feng is not a miracle worker, nor does he possess the ability to make someone forget their pain. As a squad leader, he slowly walked up to Wu Jin and fixed his gaze on him. Indeed, Wu Jin seemed lost, his eyes filled with confusion. Qin Feng thought of many comforting and encouraging words, but when it came to speaking, he found his mouth wouldn't open. Because at such moments, any consolation would be futile, and might even have the opposite effect. People cannot comprehend negative words. The more you tell them not to be sad, the sadder they become. The more you tell them not to grieve, the more they grieve. Wu Jin. Wu Jin looked at him with some confusion, as if seeing Qin Feng for the first time. His gaze was heart-wrenching, causing deep sympathy. Qin Feng took a deep breath and decided to offer some words of comfort, at least to help him regain a bit of strength. But just then, Ge Xiong suddenly rushed over in a hurry, grabbing him and pulling him forward. Qin Feng, you need to come here quickly. We have a very tricky problem that needs your help. Interrupted. Qin Feng could only glance at Wu Jin helplessly before following Ge Xiong towards a distant building that looked battered and on the verge of collapse. Don't worry. Just hurry and bring the pregnant women here. Before Qin Feng could finish his request, the temple abbot, Master Suchuan, nodded immediately. This action immediately drew opposition from some older monks around, who were concerned that this decision might violate the temple's precepts. Originally, taking in so many refugees covered in filth and blood was already a breach of the rules. Accepting pregnant women on the verge of giving birth would be like trampling the Buddhist regulations underfoot. The director of the Maternal and Child Health Hospital was aware of this, which is why he asked Qin Feng and his team to step in. After all, the weight of words spoken by ordinary citizens is entirely different from those spoken by military personnel. But in the face of numerous doubts and objections, Master Suchuan firmly stated, "Our Buddha is compassionate. Those who have renounced the worldly life should embody that compassion. At this critical moment, turning a blind eye to those in need is the greatest taboo. All other taboos are insignificant. The Buddha is not unchanging. And the suffering of sentient beings is our suffering." He turned to Qin Feng and said in a Buddhist manner, "Qin Benefactor, please hurry and bring the people over. Let us know what is needed, and we at Luohan Temple will do our utmost to cooperate." Qin Feng nodded in admiration. Such a flexible and understanding monk truly embodied great compassion. Without any hesitation, he quickly listed what needed to be prepared. After all, for childbirth, things like hot water, towels, private rooms, and beds were indispensable. After speaking, he prepared to rush back with the team. But just as he turned, he was stopped by Master Suchuan. "Benefactor, please wait." "What is it?" Qin Feng turned his head, only to find that Master Suchuan was not looking at him. Instead, he was gazing at Wu Jin beside him, speaking in a tone filled with compassion. "Benefactor, pain and confusion are only temporary." Wu Jin's body trembled, and his gaze suddenly became clearer. Then, his voice began to quiver and became hoarse. "Master, what should I do? How should I walk the path ahead?" "Just follow nature. Do what you should do. And walk the path you have not yet completed." As he spoke, Master Suchuan took a step forward and pointed to his chest. "What you remember will resonate. What your heart wishes will come to fruition. Although you and I have different beliefs, they will ultimately guide your direction." Wu Jin, who had just regained some clarity, became confused and lost again. This passage was too complex and profound. His mind could not comprehend it in such a short time. However, Qin Feng, standing nearby, understood the meaning behind those words. What you remember will resonate. What your heart wishes will come to fruition. On behalf of Wu Jin, thank you for your guidance, Master. You're welcome. He expressed his gratitude to Master Suchuan without any hesitation and immediately led Wu Jin back along the path they had come. Wu Jin, yes, there are some things that are destined in the dark. Don't give up until the last moment. Qin Feng patted his back. You cannot fall now. Many people need you. Wu Jin's heart skipped a beat, and suddenly, the image of a girl holding an orange with a gentle smile appeared before him. After that, he said nothing, simply nodding vigorously at Qin Feng. But in that moment, Qin Feng could sense that his spirit had returned somewhat. Following the direction in which the two left, Master Su Qiuan gazed at the ruins in the distant city. He continued to grasp the prayer beads in his hand, murmuring Umitba under his breath. Yet, 2 lines of compassionate tears flowed from his eyes. Taking a deep breath, he turned to instruct others in the temple. Please, those affected by the disaster, help quickly move the statues outside and clear the room for the pregnant women to use as a delivery room. Additionally, take down all the removable door panels to make into bedboards, boil more hot water, and prepare more food, especially meat. What? Master Su Qiuan's words startled all the monks. They had not expected that after breaking so many precepts, the abbot would still want to break a major rule, taking life. Despite the strong objections from everyone, Master Su Qiuan remained resolute. After giving birth, the women need to replenish their nutrition. We can eat vegetarian and drink porridge, but they cannot, so we must buy meat. When you find the vendors, be sure to explain the situation and buy as much as you can. Also, we need a large amount of milk powder. The monks exchanged glances, only able to nod helplessly. Having already broken so many precepts, breaking one more didn't seem to matter. After all, those were lives at stake. As the saying goes, if I do not enter hell, who will? At this moment, downstairs at the maternal and child health hospital, 2 figures were anxiously pacing back and forth. At this moment, Gujiong suddenly spotted several figures running towards him from a distance. Upon seeing Qin Feng, he immediately rushed over with excitement, anxiously asking, how is it? Did they agree? The monk Su Qiuan was very reasonable and had already given his consent, urging them to quickly send the people over. Great, great. The dean, upon hearing the news, was also extremely excited. Without a second thought, he immediately notified the remaining medical staff upstairs to begin transferring the pregnant women. Most of these women were already at their due dates, lying in their beds and unable to move. Moreover, the earthquake had damaged the elevators in the building. Therefore, they could only use stretchers or wheelchairs to bring them down. It was unrealistic to expect these heavily pregnant women to walk down the stairs by themselves. Additionally, due to the earthquake, some of the handrails on the stairs were already shaking, and there were cracks on the steps. A slight misstep could lead to a fall. Fortunately, with the help of the soldiers, everything went much more smoothly. You few, go help move the equipment. Oxygen tanks, bandages, and some hemostatic drugs must be taken along. The rest help with the transfer of the pregnant women. Be gentle and careful not to bump them during the transfer. Watch out for falling debris. Under the effective command of Gujiong and Qin Feng, everyone moved quickly through the building like well-coordinated ants. Portable oxygen tanks, blood pressure measuring devices, and hemostatic bandages were soon transported downstairs. Several vehicles were already waiting outside, specifically for transferring the pregnant women. However, just as the evacuation was halfway through, a slight tremor suddenly shook the ground. Not good, an aftershock. Gujiong's heart tightened. He was unaware of the magnitude of the aftershock. He quickly shouted towards the hall. Hurry up, hurry up. There's another aftershock. Qin Feng inside the building also felt the shaking beneath his feet. Fortunately, this aftershock was not strong and ended quickly. Nevertheless, they had to race against time to transfer the patients. Qin Feng and Wu Jin worked together to lift one of the pregnant women onto a stretcher. Accompanied by a medical staff member, they hurried down the stairs. But when they reached the 3rd floor, the internal steel reinforcement of the stairs suddenly made a loud noise. As if it had broken. The stairs, which had been relatively stable, began to sway like a seesaw. The pregnant woman on the stretcher screamed in terror, gripping the railings tightly. It's okay, don't be afraid. Qin Feng kept reassuring her. Fortunately, they managed to safely bring the pregnant woman downstairs without any further incidents. However, no one noticed that the building was leaning at a greater angle than before. The crack in the middle of the stairs had also lengthened, resembling a sinister scar. How many people are left in the building? There were 3 medical staff members and 2 pregnant women remaining. Others shouldn't go in. The 4 of us will go in and bring the people out. Let's hurry and leave. Qin Feng looked at the dilapidated building, a sense of unease creeping into his heart. Nevertheless, he charged in with Wu Jin, Zhao Pengfei, and Tang Lei without hesitation. Just moments after they rushed inside, the Earthquake Monitoring Center, located over 10 kilometers away, suddenly lit up with red alarms. Not good. A geological expert stood up in panic. The next aftershock is predicted to reach a magnitude of 4.2. What? The director, alarmed, quickly stood up and yelled into the intercom. Sound the alarm. Notify all personnel involved in the rescue to stay away from the collapsed buildings. If they don't evacuate to a safe location in time, the rescue operation could turn into another disaster. Chapter 257. Don't let my soldiers sacrifice themselves in vain. A magnitude 4. 5 aftershock is coming. Sound the alarm, hurry. Buzz. Buzz. The piercing alarm echoed from the loudspeakers, resonating throughout the disaster area. Hearing the alarm blaring in their ears, the rescuers in the area instantly changed their expressions. They shouted loudly to evacuate the rubble while pulling those nearby toward open ground. Sure enough, within just a few seconds, the ground began to tremble. It felt as though some monster was buried beneath the surface, repeatedly butting against the ground with its head. Although this tremor was much weaker than during the initial earthquake, it still had the potential to cause significant destruction. The already collapsed buildings became even more compressed, further reducing the gaps below the rubble and the chances of survival for those trapped. At that moment, the maternal and child health hospital began to sway, as if an invisible child was pushing against the building from outside. Inside, Zhao Pengfei and Tang Lei had just received a pregnant woman when they heard the sharp alarm ringing from afar. Terrified, they dared not linger for a moment and rushed outside. Fortunately, their position was on the second floor, so they managed to safely get the woman out in the nick of time. All medical personnel inside had evacuated, and now only Qin Feng and Wu Jin needed to retrieve the last pregnant woman before they could begin the smooth transfer. However, it was unfortunate that the staircase leading from the third to the second floor had undergone significant deformation. The junction at the bottom had completely broken apart, creating a gap of at least 60 centimeters, with a vertical displacement of over 40 centimeters. With such a large gap, it would be difficult to pass through with a stretcher, since a stretcher requires one person at the front and another at the back. The pregnant woman could easily fall if not handled carefully. Moreover, the building was still shaking, and the pregnant woman's condition was precarious, with concrete chunks and wall debris occasionally falling from above. A fluorescent light was being dragged by wires, swaying left and right above the heads of the crowd, causing even more annoyance. Qin Feng stood in the corner of the staircase, glancing at the pregnant woman lying on the stretcher, looking distressed. He shouted to Wu Jin, "The stretcher is useless now. You carry her to minimize the affected area, and we'll rush out together." Wu Jin nodded vigorously, and besides that, he couldn't think of a better solution. He quickly lifted the pregnant woman from the ground, weighing over 100 pounds. It could be quite a strain for an ordinary person. However, for soldiers like them who regularly trained with heavy loads, it was not too difficult. "Listen to me. I'll count to 3. On 3, we jump together." "Okay." Wu Jin nodded firmly. Qin Feng took a deep breath, just about to start counting when a loud bang echoed, as if the entire floor above them had collapsed a section down. The two were startled and quickly crouched down, the pregnant woman in Wu Jin's arms nearly fainting from fear. The weight of a concrete floor is measured in tons. If it really came crashing down, they would undoubtedly perish. "Quick jump." Qin Feng no longer hesitated and pulled Wu Jin forward. The gap in the stairs ahead looked terrifying. Qin Feng jumped first and landed, with Wu Jin following closely behind. However, because he was carrying someone, he twisted his ankle upon landing. Fortunately, Qin Feng was there to support him, otherwise, the pregnant woman might have been thrown out. "Are you okay?" "I twisted my ankle, but it's nothing serious," Qin Feng replied, and helped Wu Jin up from the ground. The two quickly made their way down to the first floor. As long as they passed through a hall to get outside, they would be completely safe. Debris and plaster continued to fall from above, and dust filled the corridor. For safety reasons, Qin Feng could only raise his arm to shield the pregnant woman's face and abdomen, trying to create a makeshift umbrella to protect her from the falling debris. Wu Jin did the same, bending over to shield her with his back as much as possible. Soon, they reached the first floor and saw the anxious crowd waiting outside. "Hurry up, come out. The building is about to collapse." Indeed, the building was on the verge of collapse. Those inside, including Qin Feng, didn't have a strong sense of the danger. They only felt a swaying sensation, as if every step was on cotton. But the people outside could clearly see that the building was visibly tilting to the left. Zhao Pengfei and Chen Sanqi, among others, were anxiously waiting outside. They attempted to rush in to help several times, but were stopped by Gu Xiong and Gua Haitao. The fewer people inside, the smaller the area affected. The more people there were, the more chaotic it could become. If someone were to be struck by falling debris, the rescue would turn into a farce. Just as the two passed through the hall, numerous cracks suddenly appeared in the exterior of the building. The sound of rumbling fractures echoed in their ears, and the ceiling above began to press down relentlessly. Suddenly, a massive stone slab fell from in front of them. Wu Jin was so startled that he quickly stopped, his heart nearly jumping out of his throat. "Hurry, let's go." Qin Feng dragged the stunned Wu Jin through the hall, filled with smoke and dust, rushing wildly towards the door. Just when they were about 4 to 5 meters away from the entrance, Wu Jin suddenly noticed numerous cracks appearing on the beam above the door. If the beam collapsed, they would never be able to escape. He was just about to remind Qin Feng to be careful when he suddenly felt a strong force coming from behind. Before Wu Jin could react, he was propelled forward like a high-speed train. In the blink of an eye, he had already lunged out the door and stumbled into Gu Xiong and the others. Wu Jin realized that it was Qin Feng who had pushed him out, but he couldn't understand how an ordinary person could unleash such terrifying strength in an instant. At that moment, something struck him, and as he turned around, his gaze trembled violently. The beam at the top of the door had already broken, and a large amount of debris, along with the floor, came crashing down, completely burying the figure inside. Immediately after, a loud rumble echoed from the building. Accompanied by shouts of retreat, everyone quickly moved back. The building of the maternal and child health hospital collapsed like a fallen giant. The ground shook violently, sending dust and debris into the air, making it impossible for anyone to open their eyes. As the dust gradually settled, there was no longer any sign of the building. Only a vast expanse of ruins left behind. Squad leader, Qin Feng, Brother Feng. Heart-wrenching cries rang out. Zhao Pengfei, with red eyes, was the first to rush forward. Wu Jin, Li Jiaxing, Qi Ming, Chen Sanqi, Lu Xiaowang, and others all charged towards the ruins like they had gone mad. Gu Xiong looked at the pregnant woman who had only suffered a minor scratch, and his eyes turned red. Is it a life for a life? Which bastard taught you to be a soldier like this? Is your life worth so little when it comes to firefighting and disaster relief? Gu Xiong's heart was torn, cursing the bastard in his mind. In that situation, Qin Feng could have easily escaped. As long as he gritted his teeth and charged forward, he would have made it out. But in the end, he gave his chance of survival to Wu Jin and the pregnant woman. Gu Xiong clenched his teeth and turned to the tearful director, speaking with difficulty. Director, all the pregnant women have been safely evacuated. Hurry and move everyone to the temple. Don't let my soldiers' sacrifice be in vain. Chapter 258. Qin of Qin Huang and Hanwu. The wind of scholars' integrity. My name is Qin Feng. I'm laying it all on the line. I am a traveler from another world. I vaguely remember that the day before I crossed over, I had completed a big order worth over 20 million and was promoted to general manager of the company by the chairman. I was very happy and treated all my colleagues to a meal. I forgot to mention, that day also happened to be my 36th birthday. At 36, I had achieved my dream of an annual salary of 1 million in a first-tier city. I believed I had surpassed 95% of the people in the country. But why am I not happy? Why am I not joyful? After the gathering dispersed, I wandered aimlessly on the streets. At 3 in the morning in this vibrant city, there were many others like me, meandering drunkenly along the road. Sanitation workers had already begun cleaning the streets, and there were people eating in the nearby 24-hour convenience store. Everyone seemed like diligent little ants, faithfully repeating their daily routines. Perhaps the alcohol was kicking in, as I felt a bit dizzy and my stomach was uneasy. I found a curb to sit on, looking up at the streetlights that emitted a warm yellow glow, my slightly intoxicated face feeling a bit dazed. I began to ponder why the loudest person at the table just moments ago now had no strength to even smile. Yes, I had received a promotion and a raise. Yet I couldn't find joy, because there was no one to share the happiness with me. In my days, I started to miss the bamboo bed in my hometown's main room. During the sweltering summer, lying on that cool bamboo bed always brought me peace. My grandmother would hold a fan, gently stroking my sweaty head while fanning me softly. I also often reminisced about sitting on the back of my father's bicycle during the rain, covered by a raincoat. The raincoat always had a musty smell. Yet that scent remains unforgettable to me. Sometimes I think people are strange. As children, we always long for adulthood. But once we grow up, we reminisce about the simple joys of childhood. Adults are perpetually striving for more money, wanting 5,000 when they already have 1, and 10,000 when they have 5. But when you truly attain it, you realize, well, it seems like it's just that. Is Michelin really better than street barbecue? Is expensive red wine truly better than a carefree adventure? Not necessarily. At this moment, my gaze drifted to the right. I unintentionally noticed a banner hanging on the wall. It was a recruitment advertisement that read, "Outstanding youth aspire to serve in the military, passionate young men devoted to the country." I smiled wryly, realizing why I was unhappy. Not only did I lack someone to share joy with, but I also carried a lingering regret in my heart. And this regret, no matter how much money I earned, could never be compensated. I still remembered what my grandmother once said, "My dear grandson, if you want to join the army, go ahead, I support you. Serving can help fight against the invaders." Thinking of that elderly woman's face made my nose tingle. I felt something welling up in my eyes. There were still passers-by on the road, and not wanting to be seen shedding tears as a supposed elite earning a 6-figure income, I pretended to pull out a pack of cigarettes from my pocket. I took one out and put it in my mouth. But then I realized I had left my lighter on the coffee table at the gathering. Just as I was about to put the cigarette back into the pack in frustration, I unexpectedly spotted a discarded lighter on the roadside. It was an utterly ordinary 2-yuan lighter, and its only advantage over a 1-yuan lighter was, at the bottom, there's an inflatable valve that allows for refilling after use. With a pop, a flame ignited. I brought the cigarette closer, took a deep drag after lighting it. It was then that I noticed the front of the lighter had a pattern of a red flag along with the words determination and ambition. Turning it over, It read humans can conquer nature. I chuckled to myself, dismissing it. The idea of humans conquering nature is nonsense. A person's life is clearly predetermined from birth. Some people would rather die than join the military, yet are forced into it by their families. Meanwhile, others aspire to enlist from a young age, but can't seem to get in. The saying, regret for 2 years if you enlist, regret for a lifetime if you don't, is just a joke for many. But for those who are passionate about it, it's truly the greatest regret of their lives. I mentally cursed the heavens using some crude language. Then, I stubbed out the cigarette under my foot, crushing it hard as if to vent my frustration. Just as I adjusted my tie and stood up to leave, 2 beams of bright light shot toward me from a distance, nearly blinding me. I squinted and realized it was a dump truck, boldly heading straight for me. Damn it. At that moment, I felt a twinge of regret. If I hadn't smoked that cigarette, would this have happened? When I opened my eyes again, I was stunned to find myself on a bus. Not only was I wearing camouflage, but I also had a bright red flower pinned to my chest, symbolizing my glorious enlistment. Having read countless online novels, I immediately realized I had traveled to a parallel world, one very similar to my own, and had become a new recruit in the 402nd Regiment. At first, I worried it might be a dream or some fleeting illusion, but the sensation felt too real, affirming that I had truly crossed over. I was thrilled. The feeling of having my wish fulfilled is hard to describe. But then, I encountered a rather troublesome issue. The guy I had become seemed a bit too unruly. Yoon Yinan, Xiao Suner, Xiaowu, Mimi, Shirshir's mother. Are you a master of time management? I muttered under my breath before coming up with a plan to cut through the chaos. However, when I hung up the phone and prepared to hand over my device, everyone in the dormitory looked at me with very peculiar expressions. I was speechless, but more than that, I felt helpless. I knew I had caused a misunderstanding. Now, everyone thought I was a scumbag, a player. To change their stereotype of me, I decided I would commit to being a good soldier. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Zhao Pengfei, and I am your class monitor. Now, it's your turn to introduce yourselves and share why you decided to join the army. I am Chen Sanchi from Nanha. I'm not good at much, but I'm the best at eating. I tend to talk a lot, and I'm not very brave, but I dare to sneak some dog food. Also, I make great shredded potatoes. I'm Xia Bin from Shiguang. I love to rap, but my family thinks I'm a bit crazy, so they sent me here. I am Qi Meng from Dongshan. Although I have practiced martial arts, I really don't want to spar with veterans. I want to learn the Black Dragon 18 techniques. By the way, my orientation is very normal, absolutely normal. I'm Maibok from Shishan, and my family has a mind. I like eating vinegar but not hanging noodles. I'm a bit picky. However, I'm very generous and hope everyone will be friends with me. Plus, I'm great at shooting and will definitely become a sharpshooter in the future. Before long, everyone had introduced themselves and turned their attention to me. I could sense that Maibok was a bit displeased with me. He seemed jealous that I was better looking than him, or perhaps he felt outdone in matters of the heart. However, I didn't pay him much mind. Having lived 2 lives has given me the ability to see through many peers easily. After all, for these young people with little social experience, my 36 years of worldly wisdom can easily overshadow them. Let me think about how to introduce myself. I certainly can't say I came from another world. Otherwise, everyone would think I'm crazy. So my introduction was brief and perhaps a bit dull. I'm Qin Feng, from the Qin dynasty, the wind of scholarly elegance. I'm from Jiangsu and Zhejiang, and I'm here to serve my country. Actually, this is all true. I genuinely want to serve my country. However, the class monitor seemed dissatisfied with my introduction, thinking I must have a story. More importantly, he couldn't glean any useful information from me. Not being able to see through me really bothered him. But that doesn't matter. What's important is that I've joined the army, and I've decided to be a good soldier. Actions always speak louder than empty words. I will prove to everyone that I can be an excellent soldier. However, there's one thing I don't understand. Since I've crossed over, where's the system? Where's the golden finger? Damn, could I be a fake time traveler? In this day and age, crossing over without a system feels like going out without wearing underwear. Extremely insecure. Without a system to help, can an ordinary person really stand out in the military, survive in the midst of gunfire, and make it through various dangers? The answer is no, it's impossible. In the end, soldiers are just ordinary people with steadfast beliefs, tempered through trials, but they like to pretend to be strong. They fear pain, bleed, and can die from a bullet wound. They have loved ones and families who care about them. Therefore, I feel I need to get a system. And it must be a powerful one. I don't want a messy data panel or complicated tasks. As long as it helps me grow freely, become stronger, and allows me to act recklessly in the face of death, that's all that matters. Just when I was wondering why there was no response, a prompt sound suddenly echoed in my mind. I felt a surge of joy. My golden finger had finally arrived. System, Life Lock has been successfully activated. Life Lock. I didn't understand why it needed to be locked. With confusion, another voice followed in my mind, booming like a bell. Life must be endless. Current life value, 1. The body is under emergency repair. Chapter 259, When one is in trouble, help comes from all sides cold, dark, damp. A drop of murky water fell from a crevice, landing on Qin Feng's forehead. His eyelids flickered slightly as his consciousness gradually began to awaken, struggling to open his eyes. He found only darkness before him. He tried to move his body but realized he couldn't move at all, as if he were stuck in an extremely small space. Is this a coffin? Qin Feng instinctively thought he might have been buried. But soon, he recalled that cremation is common these days. Surely it couldn't be an urn, right? His thoughts were fragmented and erratic, but he quickly remembered everything. They were evacuating pregnant women from a dangerous building when it collapsed, and he couldn't escape. The last thing he saw was the ceiling coming down, and then he lost consciousness. However, judging by his current situation, he must not have been completely crushed. Instead, he was wedged in a narrow gap. Otherwise, even with a system, he would likely be beyond saving. Qin Feng knew that relying on himself to escape was futile. The only thing he could do was wait quietly for rescue. But humans are social creatures, highly socialized beings. After getting used to the daily noise, it was hard to adapt to an entirely isolated environment, especially in a situation where his freedom was restricted, surrounded by complete darkness, and unable to move. This reminded Qin Feng of the confinement cells in the military, designed to isolate you from the outside world, amplify inner fears, and reflect on mistakes. So, he could only smile bitterly and comfort himself, thinking of it as being locked in a small confinement cell. Yet here, he could not sense the passage of time. He had no idea how long he had been trapped. When thirsty, Qin Feng licked the damp stone in front of him. A human can survive 7 days without food. But without a water source, one would perish in 3 days. During this time, he had thought of calling for help and had heard sounds from above. However, no matter how much he shouted, nobody responded, and he ended up exhausting his strength. Thus, Qin Feng picked up a stone with his trapped hand and periodically tapped on the nearby metal pipe, hoping to attract the attention of rescuers. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. It might be that he was buried too deeply, or perhaps the sounds were too faint. In a daze, Qin Feng, due to hunger and lack of blood circulation, dozed off several times. He dreamt that he not only escaped, but also arrived at a new camp, where he engaged in the upcoming training and tasks. However, upon opening his eyes, he was still met with the unrelenting darkness. A bitter expression crossed Qin Feng's face, as if he felt he shouldn't have such expectations. He knew better than anyone how difficult it would be to rescue himself. The surrounding counties had all been affected, with over 70 to 80% of buildings reduced to rubble. In such circumstances, the priority would definitely be to conduct rescue operations in the most severely affected areas. Meanwhile, he was trapped under an entire building by himself, which hardly justified the allocation of so much manpower and resources. Forget it, he decided to let fate take its course. Qin Feng had started to become indifferent to life and death. After all, this was not the first time he had faced death. Although he said that, deep down, he still held on to a glimmer of hope. So, to conserve the little energy he had left, he reluctantly closed his eyes once more. This time, he didn't know how long he had been asleep, but he had another dream. In this dream, he heard the sound of rubble being moved. He saw light gradually filtering into the darkness. The suffocating feeling around him vanished. He felt as if he were a ball of cotton, floating in the air. No, more accurately, it felt like hands were lifting him up from behind. In his haze, Qin Feng heard many familiar voices echoing around him, all crying out his name. Qin Feng, you can't be in trouble. You have to hold on. Company commander, wake up. Don't scare me. Brother Feng, look at me. Look at who I am. Give me a sign. You can't be in trouble. Doctor, hurry over. A masked figure in a white coat rushed over. First, they checked Qin Feng's pulse, then shone a flashlight into his pupils. There was a pulse, and his pupils reacted. He was alive, but his consciousness was completely unclear. Quick, cover his eyes and get him to the Luohan Temple. Thank you, Uncle Li. In a temporary tent set up in the disaster area, Gu Zhiyong held the hand of the major responsible for the rescue operation, tears of gratitude in his eyes. If you hadn't urgently dispatched 2 cranes and a forklift, working day and night on the rescue, my soldier might really have been beyond saving. These are minor matters. I have served as an advisor to your father for so many years. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't be where I am today. Major Li waved his hand, speaking courteously. However, even without my relationship with your father, we would still send people to conduct the rescue. He sighed. I know about your soldier. He truly embodies the spirit of a soldier's mission and selflessness. He is a true hero, and no matter the cost, we will definitely rescue him. Qin Feng was actually quite fortunate. During the rescue operations, many soldiers had sacrificed their lives to save others. Some individuals were struck on the head by falling rocks during the rescue operation and died on the spot. Others were unable to evacuate in time when aftershocks hit, being mercilessly engulfed by the rubble. Among them were soldiers, police officers, armed police, firefighters, and medical personnel. Yet, even in such dangerous circumstances. Many people disregarded their own safety and rushed to the disaster area to assist with the rescue efforts. Currently, all roads leading to the disaster area have been restored for traffic, except for the broken bridges. Heavy rescue equipment and supplies from all over the country are pouring into the affected area. When one side is in trouble, support comes from all corners. More and more volunteers are arriving to help. Many charitable celebrities are also bringing large amounts of supplies to the scene, even joining rescue personnel in tirelessly working day and night on disaster relief and reconstruction. At this moment, there are no class distinctions or identities. Everyone is contributing to the disaster area. Some say that people from this region enjoy regional stereotypes, with one province humorously referred to as the 13 Protectors. However, when faced with danger or disaster, all citizens unite instantly, working together towards a common goal. This sense of cohesion astonishes the world and leaves many in awe. No country on earth can be as united or possess such strong solidarity as we do. As evening fell, bonfires were lit in the temple. Surrounding the courtyard were makeshift shelters constructed from woven bags and wooden sticks. These shelters were filled with people, all disaster victims taken in by the temple. The disaster had destroyed their homes, and it was Master Su Ming who opened the temple doors to provide a refuge for everyone. At that moment, Qin Feng lay on a board in the corner, covered with a quilt. His pale face resembled that of a vampire, with sunken cheeks and eye sockets. Is he still not awake? Gu Xiong approached the window, glanced at Qin Feng with his eyes tightly shut, and softly asked. Zhao Pengfei sighed and replied. It's been 6 hours. He is still in a coma. I had a doctor check on him, and they said it's normal. He should wake up by tomorrow at the latest. Gu Xiong smiled wryly, being trapped under the rubble for 10 days without water or food. It's a miracle he is alive. Indeed, Zhao Pengfei nodded. Anyone else would have struggled to last this long. It shows his willpower and desire to survive are much stronger than those of ordinary people. Just then, Gu Xiong's phone in his pocket suddenly rang. The telecommunications department had urgently repaired and restored communication over these days. After answering, he heard the deep voice of Commander Lu Chong on the other end. Hello, Commander. How is Qin Feng doing? He is out of danger, but he hasn't woken up yet. That is good to hear. After expressing a few words of concern, Lu Chong got straight to the point. I've sent a vehicle to pick you up. You need to leave the disaster area in an hour and report to the new deployment location immediately. Gu Xiong was taken aback for a moment, but the rescue work is far from over, and the reconstruction in the disaster area. Lu Chong interrupted him. The reconstruction in the disaster area is not something that can be accomplished quickly. The disaster situation has been basically controlled, and other units will come to assist. You need to report immediately. There can't be the slightest delay. Gu Xiong asked, Commander, is something wrong? Lu Chong took a deep breath and said coldly, the situation is very tricky. This matter cannot be explained clearly over the phone. In any case, you cannot delay for even a moment. As for Qin Feng, just leave 2 people to take care of him. When he has recovered, he can report back. Understood. After the call ended, Gu Xiong looked helplessly at Zhao Pengfei. You heard everything, right? Yes. Then you and Wu Jin stay to take care of him. If there is any situation, call me immediately. Got it. Chapter 260. Squad Leader, you finally woke up. Under the night sky, the temple gradually fell silent. In a meditation room to the south, candles were lit. Although some areas had restored power, the technical department was still in the process of repairs. Therefore, to protect electricity usage, intermittent power supply was currently being implemented to relieve the pressure on electricity demand. Wu Jin tiptoed in quietly from outside and patted Zhao Pengfei, who had been sitting by the bedside. Squad Leader, it's getting late. You should rest. I'm fine. I'm not tired. Squad Leader, you should take a break. Let me keep watch. I slept during the day. Hearing this, Zhao Pengfei sighed slightly. He knew that his presence didn't make much of a difference. If Qin Feng was going to wake up, he would do so naturally. Considering that there would be a lot of work to do the next day, he nodded. All right then, I'll go sleep for a bit. If Qin Feng wakes up, let me know. Understood. Zhao Pengfei got up, stretched his arms, and twisted his creaking old waist. He had been following the main force in rescue and disaster relief for days and was truly exhausted. He then went to a nearby tent, crawled into his sleeping bag, and began to rest. Wu Jin took his place, sitting on a small plastic stool, continuing to keep Qin Feng company. The earthquake not only destroyed a large part of the city's buildings, but also completely paralyzed the local medical system. Currently, the few remaining hospitals in the city had become unsafe buildings and were not suitable for housing patients. Therefore, Qin Feng could only recuperate in the temple. Fortunately, he did not need surgery. Otherwise, it would have been really troublesome. Looking at Qin Feng's pale and sunken face, Wu Jin sighed, and memories of that moment flooded back to him. For the past few days, he had been feeling guilty, thinking that he was the one who had caused Qin Feng's predicament. He even thought that it would have been better if he had died instead. The death of his family and girlfriend left him with no hope for life. In the days following the rescue operations, he even thought that if an aftershock could bury him as well, perhaps it would put an end to his suffering. In the eyes of ordinary people, soldiers are always seen as tough individuals who do not shed tears, embodying the spirit of resilience. But who can know that they also have moments of vulnerability and tenderness in their hearts? It is the red faith within that has kept him from falling. At that moment, Wu Jin unexpectedly pulled out a broken phone from his pocket. The screen was completely shattered, and no matter how he pressed the power button, there was no response. Helpless, he put the damaged phone back into his pocket and took out a photo. It was a snapshot of him and Wang Yimin taken during a visit to a panda breeding center. Behind them was a cute giant panda munching on bamboo. In the photo, Wu Jin was holding a milk tea, while Wang Yimin had a panda-shaped ice cream in her hand, and both were smiling happily. He slowly reached out to touch the girl's face in the photo, his heart aching. At this point, Wu Jin still could not face this reality. His marriage application had already been submitted, and the military had agreed. After finally finding a goal and wanting to work hard to become an officer, everything seemed to be progressing in a positive direction, but why did it end up like this? Wu Jin tightly grasped the photo, tears falling drop by drop, accidentally hitting the picture. He was worried about smudging the photo and even more afraid of forgetting what the girl looked like. In a panic, he tried to wipe it with his hand. Suddenly, a hand holding a tissue appeared before him. Wu Jin was stunned for a second, then looked up in the direction the hand came from. He saw Qin Feng had somehow sat up on his own, looking weak and waving the tissue at him. Wipe it, it's your most precious thing. Don't smudge it. Qin Feng's voice was soft and hoarse, as if his vocal cords had been sanded down, rough and raspy. While Wu Jin wiped the photo with the tissue, he looked at Qin Feng with some surprise. Squad leader you're awake. Qin Feng smiled weakly. With how I look, I don't seem dead, right? He asked, what's the date now? How long have I been asleep? It's the 8th day of the Lunar New Year. You've been trapped in the ruins for 10 full days. We just dug you out during the day? Upon hearing Wu Jin's response, Qin Feng couldn't help but smile. Dug out. It feels like digging a grave. However, there was nothing wrong with that statement. If it weren't for the system locking his health, he might have died again. Qin Feng suddenly felt that his system was like a discount on a shopping platform. Every time death thought it could claim him, that final blow just couldn't land. Is there anything to eat? I'm really hungry. Yes. I'll go get it for you right now. Wu Jin was a bit too excited and made noise when he got up, waking many of the sleeping disaster victims in the room. In fact, the sound Wu Jin made wasn't loud. However, after experiencing the earthquake, everyone was already on edge. Any slight noise would make them worry about aftershocks. Groggily, everyone sat up and saw Qin Feng sitting against the wall, their faces instantly filled with surprise. The young man has woken up. The news of Qin Feng's awakening quickly spread throughout the temple. For so many days, his selfless act of saving others had already become widely known. In a moment of crisis, he stepped up and gave hope to his comrades and a pregnant woman. Such a person would have been written into textbooks as a great hero in the past. After all, in this materialistic society, there are really not many people with such noble character. Soon, Zhao Pengfei rushed over with bread and milk. These were disaster relief supplies distributed locally. Although simple, they provided essential nutrition during these critical times. Qin Feng swallowed the bread and milk eagerly. With food in his stomach, he finally felt truly alive again. After 10 whole days without food, he felt he could eat 50 chickens and a whole cow. At this moment, Master Su Chuan also quickly arrived with some people. He had a bowl of steaming noodle soup brought to Qin Feng. Master Su Chuan said, it's cold outside. Eat something warm to warm your body. This is specially prepared for you. Although Qin Feng was still very hungry, he did not reach for it. This was a bowl of meat noodles. The soup was not only floating with oil, but even had a whole chicken leg in it. Eating meat noodles, especially with a chicken leg, in a temple was somewhat inappropriate. Master Su Chuan seemed to sense Qin Feng's concerns and spoke up. You have done a great deed by risking your life to save others. You need meat to replenish your strength. Moreover, as long as we don't consume meat ourselves, it doesn't count as breaking our vows. So you don't need to worry about us. Thanking the abbot, Qin Feng decided not to be overly modest any longer. He picked up the bowl and started eating. The warm food was indeed different from the bread and milk. Once it hit his stomach, a bit of color returned to Qin Feng's face, and his body felt warm. However, Master Su Chuan and the others stepped back a bit. Their long-term vegetarian diet made it difficult for them to tolerate even the faintest smell of meat. Whenever they caught a whiff, they couldn't help but feel nauseous. Qin Feng quickly finished the bowl of noodles and expressed his gratitude to the abbot once again. He had eaten a lot during this meal: a large bag of bread, 5 boxes of milk, a bowl of noodles, and several packs of biscuits. In truth, he was not full, but Zhao Pengfei was worried he might overeat, so he wouldn't let him continue. In the early morning hours, everyone went back to sleep. But Qin Feng got out of bed. After a long period of inactivity, his limbs felt incredibly stiff. The system's self-repair mechanism, as usual, halted at 70%. This was a self-protection mechanism intended to make Qin Feng appear less unusual, preventing him from being captured for research. Therefore, he needed some time to slowly adapt to this, so he could recover quickly. With Xiao Pengfei's support, Qin Feng gradually began to walk again. His uncoordinated limbs and reactions made him look like a toddler learning to walk. Where are the others? I haven't seen them, Qin Feng asked. They received orders to report to the new defense location, Xiao Pengfei casually mentioned. It seems like there's an urgent task. An urgent task? Qin Feng paused, suddenly deep in thought. Chapter 261. If there really is a bodhisattva. Perhaps it looks like the soldiers. 998, 999, 1000. After completing 1,000 push-ups, Qin Feng nimbly jumped up from the ground. After 2 days of rest, his physical condition had mostly recovered. Although he still looked a bit pale and his stamina hadn't peaked yet, he was basically fine. At that moment, an elderly man reading in a nearby shed smiled and gave Qin Feng a thumbs up. Young man, your recovery is impressively fast. Just a couple of days ago, you were lying there unable to move, and now you seem like nothing happened. Sir, there are many soldiers in the army with physiques like mine. Good, good. The old man nodded with a smile. Young people are strong and healthy. That's how we can truly realize a strong country and a strong military. The people have faith, and the country has hope. Qin Feng had been there for 2 days and had gotten to know everyone a bit. He knew the old man was a teacher, which explained his eloquent speech. After chatting casually for a while, it was time for lunch. Xiao Pengfei and Wu Jin had gone out earlier to help with disaster relief. When they returned, Qin Feng had already prepared a large bowl of vegetarian food for them. In the temple, most of the time, they ate vegetarian meals, with only postpartum women needing nutritional supplements, allowing them to break the rule and eat meat. Everyone understood this, as respect is mutual. Besides the free vegetarian meals provided by the temple, there were also plenty of snacks and biscuits as relief supplies, so there was no need to worry about going hungry. With no tables available, the three found a spot and stood to eat. Squad leader, I feel like I've fully recovered. How about we leave after lunch? Qin Feng said while digging into his bowl. Xiao Pengfei was a bit surprised. You're all better after just 2 days? Wu Jin laughed and said, Squad leader, don't you know what kind of physique Qin Feng has? With the same injury, others might take a month to recover. But he has done it in just a few days. I even saw him come back, carrying 4 bags of rice like it was nothing. Hearing this, Xiao Pengfei chuckled wryly. Qin Feng, sometimes I really wonder what kind of monster you are. Maybe recovering quickly is a kind of talent, Qin Feng joked. Xiao Pengfei shook his head, not pleased. That is not what I meant. I meant to say, why do you seem to attract trouble wherever you go? It's like that animated detective, Conan. And every time, it's a near-death experience. If this continues, you might give me a heart attack. Getting to know you feels like it's taking years off my life. Qin Feng awkwardly scratched his nose, unsure of how to explain, but Wu Jin spoke up first. Squad leader, that is not fair to say. Wouldn't he that make our commander a jinx? I think it should be explained this way. Whenever there is danger, our soldiers are always the first to respond. So, it's not that danger arises because of Qin Feng's presence, but rather that his appearance is a response to the danger. Wow. Xiao Pengfei looked at him in surprise. You're quite the smooth talker. Are you planning to take an exam? Hee. Wu Jin scratched his head in embarrassment. Qin Feng looked at Wu Jin with newfound respect and nodded vigorously. I think Wu Jin has a point. He continued, moreover, aside from that firefighting incident, wasn't every other situation one we experienced together? This shows that wherever there is danger, we can always see our soldiers' figures, and we always manage to turn peril into safety. Xiao Pengfei laughed. Hearing you say that, it does seem like it's not just your fault. Just then, a loud commotion suddenly erupted from a nearby shed. Everyone seemed to put down their bowls and chopsticks and gathered around the food distribution area. What is going on over there? I don't know. Let us go take a look. The three, curious, moved closer. Not far away, the monk Su Quan was also looking puzzled as he served food. Dear patrons, what is the matter? Is today's meal not to your liking? At that moment, a woman holding a baby stepped forward with a cloth bag. Thank you for the help you've provided us these days. You have opened your doors to give us shelter, food, and water. Without your assistance, our child might not have been born safely. Please, you must accept this gift. Amitabha, a monk should be compassionate. I've only done what I could. Monk Su Quan shook his head, declining the offer. But the woman insisted he accept it. Monk, it's not a valuable gift, just a token of our gratitude. With that, she publicly opened the bag and revealed the contents. When the monks in the temple saw the item, they all looked shocked and bowed their heads to chant Amitabha. Even Su Quan's expression became complex, and he quietly recited Amitabha as well. Qin Feng clearly saw that it was a piece of cloth. More precisely, it was a patchwork of colorful fabric with countless pieces stitched together. Xiao Pengfei and Wu Jin looked at the somewhat worn cloth and the monk's reactions, utterly bewildered. Qin Feng, what is this? It doesn't look like a blanket or a robe. This is called a patchwork robe, Qin Feng explained. Also known as a merit robe. It is made from 100 pieces of fabric. It symbolizes the monk's ascetic practice and spiritual pursuit. The ancients believed that wearing it could ward off illness and disasters and ensure a long life. That is impressive. The two widened their eyes, nearly thinking it was just a rag. How come we've never heard of this before? In the past, someone wore it. And you both know who it is, Qin Feng teased. Who? The living Buddha, Ji Gong. Hiss. The two instantly gasped in astonishment. Suddenly, an image of a teacher holding a fan, dressed in tattered clothes, and walking unsteadily appeared in my mind. They never imagined that this seemingly ordinary piece of fabric could hold such profound meaning. However, Master Su Qiuan's character is fully deserving of this patchwork robe. At a critical moment, he stood against public opinion to save a pregnant woman from peril. He even broke vows regarding killing and consuming meat to save thousands of lives. Calling him a living Buddha is not an exaggeration. Amid the crowd's admiration, Master Su Qiuan finally donned the patchwork robe. At that moment, the phrase compassionate heart seemed to become tangible. This is a truly enlightened monk. Qin Feng sighed and felt happy for the master as well. But immediately after, the crowd before him parted as if sliced in half, making way for a woman holding a baby who approached Qin Feng. He recognized her as the pregnant woman he had saved with his life. She presented a package to Qin Feng with gratitude, saying, "Comrades, thank you for risking your lives to rescue us from the building, and thank you for saving both my child and me at the last moment. We will never forget your great kindness." As she spoke, she opened the package to reveal a military uniform. Judging by the captain's insignia and the degree of wear on the cuffs, Qin Feng concluded it must be his own. However, he remembered that this uniform had been ripped and torn by stones and rebar during the disaster relief efforts and was unwearable. Yet now, it seemed to have been expertly mended. Just as Qin Feng gratefully reached out to accept it, he noticed it felt slightly heavier than before. He unzipped the camouflage jacket, and his pupils constricted in surprise. He discovered that the lining was not merely patched, but filled with colorful fabric pieces, making it another patchwork robe. Qin Feng never imagined he would receive such an honor in this lifetime. This patchwork robe, a recognition and blessing from the common people, was far more precious to him than any military medal. The excitement in Qin Feng's heart was beyond words, and when he looked up again, Master Su Qiuan had come before him. Natural disasters are merciless, but there is love among people. What this monk has done in disaster relief is a drop in the bucket, far less than even 1/10,000th of your efforts. Thank you, Qin benefactor, for your selflessness, and I also thank the countless soldiers on the front lines of disaster relief. With you safeguarding the country, we feel at ease. Then he pressed his palms together and softly murmured Amitabha, bowing slightly to Qin Feng. The other monks in the temple also joined their hands and bowed to Qin Feng and the others. The gathered citizens looked solemn, their expressions serious. If there are indeed bodhisattvas in this world, perhaps they resemble these soldiers. Half an hour later, Qin Feng and the others finished packing up. After bidding farewell to Master Su Qiuan, they were about to embark on their journey home. Sitting in the car, Qin Feng held the military uniform that embodied the wishes and blessings of the people. His eyes felt warm, and his determination to serve the country grew stronger. Protecting the citizens and safeguarding the territory was the very meaning of his service. Let's go. The car slowly started and drove onto the street. The military uniform in Qin Feng's hand seemed to resonate with something. Soon, it brought an unexpected surprise to the three of them. Chapter 262, Eternal Classic. Love and encounter to serve in the military and reach this level in this lifetime is worth dying for. Zhao Pengfei, sitting in the back seat, looked at the special military uniform in Qin Feng's hand with some emotion. Wu Jin was driving, constantly glancing at Qin Feng with envy in his eyes. With medals, plaques returned, and now a military uniform. You're a winner in life. Qin Feng smiled and said, "This uniform doesn't belong to me personally. I'm just receiving it on behalf of everyone." He looked out the window at the figures helping citizens with disaster relief and reconstruction. The vast majority were soldiers, armed police, and firefighters, followed by medical personnel and numerous volunteers. In the face of natural disasters, individual strength was almost negligible compared to everyone's contributions. Qin Feng's efforts were just a drop in the bucket. Therefore, he felt from the beginning that this military uniform did not belong to him, but to the entire unit and all the members of the People's Liberation Army working on the front lines of disaster relief. Wu Jin joked again, "Squad leader. No matter how you look at it, this military uniform is in your hands now. You embody both national fortune and merit in a fantasy novel. You'd have auspicious energy coming from 3,000 miles, and even sages would have to give you some respect." Qin Feng glanced at Wu Jin, feeling that he had become quite strange. In the past, he didn't have this much to say or such smooth lines. Zhao Pengfei raised an eyebrow. "Fantasy novels? You still have time to read that stuff?" Wu Jin laughed. "Why not? When you were leading the new recruits, we love to read ebooks during our downtime. 30 years east of the pond, 30 years west of the pond. Don't bully old Bai. Hey, while I'm not around, you dare to break discipline." Who's breaking it? Just occasionally. The two chatted casually, seemingly forgetting the pain from earlier and the suffering everyone endured during the earthquake. At that moment, as the car passed through the southern part of the city, Qin Feng noticed Wu Jin's grip on the steering wheel suddenly tighten. He looked at the heaps of ruins outside, as if recalling something. Where's her home? Who? Wu Jin's expression became somewhat unnatural. Stop the car. Qin Feng said expressionlessly. Wu Jin grew anxious. I said stop the car? Qin Feng's tone suddenly rose, and Wu Jin had no choice but to slam on the brakes, stopping by the roadside. He turned his head, feigning confusion and misunderstanding, and forced a smile to ask, Squad leader, aren't we supposed to hurry back? It has already been delayed for several days. If I return late, it won't be good. Now, even Zhao Pengfei has noticed something off about Wu Jin. He knows this soldier he trained all too well. Like himself. He is tough and strong-willed, but he simply cannot lie. His loved one is forever buried in this place. How could he possibly recover so quickly in less than half a month? The loss of a loved one is never just a sudden downpour. It is a lifelong dampness. Many people, when first confronted with the death of a loved one, can't even shed a single tear. But when they return home and see the belongings and traces of their loved one's life, that's when their pain is magnified to the limit, making it the hardest to accept. If Wu Jin cannot overcome this hurdle, he will remain in despair and will never be promoted. Once the third phase ends, his military career will essentially come to an end. Let us go take a last look, bid farewell. Don't leave with regrets. Good. After Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei finished speaking, Wu Jin restarted the car, gripping the steering wheel and driving towards the road in his memory. Soon, the car arrived in front of a massive ruin. From the remaining rubble, it was clear that this was a densely packed, old residential area, with walls marked by the passage of time. These buildings had a characteristic feature. The glass was all blue and single-layered. Moreover, most of the indoor furniture favored natural wood colors and wall panels as decoration. At this moment, many people were walking around the ruins, looking despondent. Some were burning paper money, while in other places, incense was lit and offerings were placed to honor their deceased loved ones. Although more than 10 days had passed since the earthquake, the impact and the pain left in the hearts of the people could never be erased. Many areas were so difficult to rescue that it was impossible to clear all the rubble. This also meant that some people would forever be buried beneath this debris. And this vast ruin is the grave of those victims. Following his memory, Wu Jin arrived at that spot. With a thud, his knees hit the pile of rubble. He had imagined countless times, dressed in military uniform, with a group of good brothers, flowers in hand, joyfully coming here to welcome a bride. But he never expected that what awaited him was a separation between the living and the dead. Wu Jin cried, like a child. He could no longer control his emotions and completely released his sorrow. For days, he had tried to pretend to forget, to act as if he didn't remember this event. But no matter how he tried, he could not convincingly do so. Qin Feng and Zhao Pengfei stood not far away, quietly watching him, waiting for him to vent. At such times, no amount of comfort is effective. Crying can actually bring some relief. It is said that men do not easily shed tears, and soldiers bleed and sweat, but do not cry. But in truth, it is simply because the moment of sadness has not yet arrived. After all, the human heart is made of flesh. Wang Yimin is a good girl. It's truly a pity. Zhao Pengfei took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket and lit 3 of them. Just as he was about to bow in place, Qin Feng suddenly stopped him. Wait a minute. What's wrong? You. Turn around and take a look. Zhao Pengfei, somewhat puzzled, turned his head. But the next second, his eyes widened in shock, and the cigarette in his hand fell to the ground. Meanwhile, a trainee reporter named Luo Shanshan was capturing the real situation in the disaster area with her camera, feeling a deep sense of sorrow. For her, this was not just a work assignment given by her superiors. It was also a way to authentically document a painful segment of history. In recent days, the footage Luo Shanshan had captured depicted various heartbreaking moments of separation and loss. This left her feeling very distressed, especially when she looked back at the photos, nearly bringing her to tears. Although she had also taken some touching and positive images of soldiers in action during the rescue efforts, there were simply too many such photos, and it seemed everyone was focused on them. However, Luo Shanshan's way of thinking had always been different. She didn't like to capture what everyone else was capturing and recording. It wasn't that the images of soldiers saving lives weren't worth documenting. Rather, there were just too many people doing the same. When every photo is moving and capable of becoming a classic, it means that none of them can truly become classic. Although she was just an intern, Luo Shanshan wanted to capture some unique perspectives. She wanted to find a beautiful flower in this city, devastated and scarred by the earthquake, that could genuinely bring hope and anticipation to people. Just then, she suddenly saw a few figures standing not far away amid the ruins. On the left side were 3 soldiers, and on the right was a girl, against the backdrop of the fiery clouds. This scene formed a composition that was almost perfectly stunning. Luo Shanshan's heart raced as she quickly lifted her camera. aiming in that direction and finding the best angle for a shot. In the viewfinder, the girl appeared lost in thought, tears streaming down her face. She let the plastic bag in her hand drop to the ground, scattering the oranges it contained. In the next moment, two figures ran towards each other, tightly embracing in the glow of the setting sun, as if they wanted to merge into one another and never part again. At that moment, the two soldiers exchanged glances and smiled with a sense of relief. Click. The shutter was pressed. This photo was captured by Luo Shanshan's lens. Natural disasters bring sorrow, life and death parting, encounters and reunions, and the beautiful wishes of comrades. Soon, this photo appeared in the most prominent position at the Earthquake Relief Photography Exhibition and became an eternal classic depicting the love of soldiers. Luo Shanshan also gave this photo a very beautiful name. Chapter 263. You two are a bit like Elder Jin Shi, squad leader. Instructor, I've come to report. Qin Feng smiled as he pushed open the office door, weary from travel, and set down his backpack, giving a salute to the two men. Seeing Qin Feng back, Gu Xiong quickly set aside his work, and Gua Haitao hurriedly put down his newspaper. The two greeted him with broad smiles and embraced him warmly. They then examined him closely from head to toe, and once they confirmed he was fine, they finally felt relieved. Gu Xiong dusted off the dirt from Qin Feng's cap, laughing heartily. Good lad, you've only rested for 2 days, and you're already bouncing back to life. Full of energy. Old Gua, look at this young man's physique. He's just different from us who are nearing our 40s. Gua Haitao, gripping Qin Feng's shoulders, said with deep emotion. Qin Feng, you have no idea. During those days you were trapped under the rubble. We all worked day and night trying to find ways to rescue you. We don't know how many shovels and hoes were broken. And those without tools just dug with their hands, ruining countless pairs of gloves. In the end, when there was really no other option, old Gu had to go and seek help from. Cough, cough, cough. Gu Xiong coughed forcefully, interrupting Gua Haitao. In any case, as long as you're alive. That's what matters. The past is behind us. We need to look forward. Qin Feng nodded vigorously, filled with gratitude towards the squad leader. After waking up, he had also inquired about the rescue efforts. In fact, according to his assumptions, the entire building collapsed, only trapping him. Given the severe shortage of rescue equipment and manpower, it simply wasn't worth it for the authorities to expend so many resources to save just one person. Yet, surprisingly, there were 2 cranes and a forklift on site assisting with the rescue. Qin Feng knew that the squad leader must have used some connections to request help. Otherwise, under those circumstances, it would have been impossible for just the over 200 hands from the combined unit to get him out from the rubble. By the way, Gu Xiong pulled Qin Feng to sit down, smiling as he poured a glass of water for him. You mentioned on the phone that Wu Jin's girlfriend is still alive. What is the story there? Gua Haitao pushed the glass forward, his curiosity piqued. Yes, when old Gu told me, I thought he must have misheard. Qin Feng was indeed a bit thirsty. He picked up the cup and took a sip, only to realize the water tasted off. Not only was it salty and bitter, but it also had a strong disinfectant smell. Qin Feng felt as if he had just gulped down the periodic table. He frowned and looked at the 2 men in confusion. Gu Xiong's expression was somewhat awkward, but Gua Haitao burst into laughter as if he had just pulled off a successful prank. Haha, I knew it. I knew he wouldn't be able to drink this water. What normal person takes that long to realize? He extended his hand, playfully beckoning Gu Xiong. Hurry, lose a pack of cigarettes to me. Hand it over. Gu Xiong reluctantly took out a pack of cigarettes from his pocket, but was truly unwilling to part with it. Old Gua, can we just owe it for now? Who knows, I might win it back next time. Just hand it over. Gua Haitao wasn't going to let him off easy and snatched the cigarettes from his hand. A little gambling is fine, but a lot can be harmful. Just this once. And we call it a day? Watching the 2 of them acting like children and engaging in such a trivial bet, Qin Feng couldn't help but feel amused. However, he found the water in the cup quite hard to adapt to. So he asked, is there any other water? Gua Haitao immediately grabbed a bottle of mineral water from under the coffee table and tossed it over. It seemed he had prepared it in advance. Qin Feng didn't say much. He opened it and took a couple of sips. Gu Xiong urged. You still haven't told us how Wu Jin's girlfriend came back to life? Qin Feng tightened the bottle cap and explained, here's the thing. During the earthquake, it was a minor year, right? Wang Yimin wasn't home at the time. The kindergarten they were at was holding a paper-cutting activity, inviting many parents to observe. The event wasn't held indoors, but in an outdoor shed, so everyone at the kindergarten was spared when the earthquake hit. However, Wu Jin didn't know this, and Wang Yimin was unaware that we had moved here. Plus, the power was out, and there was no mobile signal. After hearing Qin Feng's account, the 2 finally breathed a sigh of relief. This matter was entirely a misunderstanding due to a series of unfortunate coincidences. But in life, many things happen by chance. As long as people are alive, there is hope. What about Wu Jin? Did he come back with you? Yes. Didn't he stay there to keep the girl company? Qin Feng shook his head, We went to visit Wang Yimin's injured parents and then returned right away. He smiled and said, Wu Jin didn't want to delay his training schedule. He said as long as everyone was fine, there would always be opportunities to meet again. Gu Xiong and Gua Haitao exchanged glances, genuinely surprised. That sounds nothing like the Wu Jin we know. Has he grown a bit? Qin Feng chuckled after going through this. Wu Jin has changed a lot. After all, he is someone who aims to become a deputy company commander. He has to grow and improve, doesn't he? The two nodded in agreement. Teaching people doesn't work, but experiences teach you right away. After going through life and death, Wu Jin's goals for the future